Good evening, all. Please remain standing whilst my chaplain says a few words.
Good evening, and if you were expecting Bishop David Williams, I'm not him. So, a reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28. The Lord will bring a nation from far away, from the end of the earth, to swoop down on you like an eagle. A nation whose language you do not understand, a grim-faced nation showing no respect to the old or favour to the young. It shall consume the fruit of your livestock and the fruit of your ground until you are destroyed, leaving you neither grain, wine, and oil, nor the increase of your cattle and the issue of your flock, until it has made you perish. So one of my ministries is as senior chaplain for the Royal Air Force Air Cadets in the Thames Valley. The values and principles of the Royal Air Force Air Cadets are summarised as RISE: respect, integrity, service, and excellence. These values, I believe, can be transferred to all walks of life, and I would suggest that they are as appropriate to local authorities as they are to the Air Cadets. Respect is defined in the dictionary as having due regard for someone's feelings, wishes, or rights. I believe that we should all respect other people, whether they agree with us or not. Why do we need to be constantly at each other's throats? We may disagree with each other, but surely the purpose of a council is to do the best for its residents and to agree to disagree politely. I occasionally work with the Imam to the forces, and we agree on a lot of things. But when it comes to Jesus, he will say, "This is where Charles and I agree to disagree," with a twinkle in his eye. Our reading from the Old Testament indicates what may happen when no respect is shown, and none of us should want that. So let us pray. Almighty God, as we gather today for this Borough Council meeting, we humbly ask your guidance and wisdom in our deliberations. Grant us the ability to listen attentively to one another, consider all perspectives with open minds, and make decisions that best serve the needs of our community for the greater good of all. May our actions be guided by fairness, justice, and compassion. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Padre Charles Lewis. Now, can I invite Ruth Chase from the Humanist Society to say a few words?
Well, good evening. Yes, my name is Ruth Chase and I'm a humanist celebrant. And in fact, I'm another stand-in because my colleague, David Britton, was to have taken this role this evening. But sadly, he has had a bereavement which has made it impossible for him to undertake the task. And I know that David was intending to speak about the significance of the decisions that those of you present will make for others, drawing on his experience of the recent long-term admission of his wife to hospital and the difficulties he encountered in arranging her return home. Sadly, although Linda did return home, she died 2 days later. David wanted to emphasise the potential gap between decisions made and the often unintended consequences of those whose lives are changed by these choices. And therefore, we need to bring those who make the decisions as close as possible to those who are affected by them. And I would wish to support David's argument. As a humanist, I, like others of faith and belief, believe that living well is about seeking fulfillment and helping others to do the same. Therefore, we have a responsibility to always be mindful of the effects of our actions upon others in both our family and our civic lives. And this quotation seemed particularly appropriate. The meaning of life is to live it as fully as we can, as abundantly as we can, as bravely as we can, here and now, sharing the experience with others, caring for others as we care for ourselves, and accepting our responsibility for leaving the world better than we found it. And now, during these difficult times when we're in danger of feeling overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the problems that the world faces, it's surely even more important to focus on our local community. And I'm aware that your mayor has a particular interest in promoting community cohesion. And the fact you have taken on the role of councillor indicates you take these responsibilities very seriously, and you will work for the betterment of the people of Basingstoke. However, we all have a part to play in the continuing well-being of the community in which we live. And by supporting one another, each of us can find happiness, fulfilment, and a greater purpose in life. You have my very best wishes as you undertake this important task. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. If you would like to stay, you may stay, but if you'd like to leave, you can leave as well. So please be seated.
Russ, I've not got a screen to vote.
There's been some IT failure, so I don't know. Hang on. Members, please ensure that you have signed with your voting cards. The first item of business on the agenda tonight is apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Eakes, Ganesh, Basham. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One more from us, Councillor Howard Surrell.
Councillor Gavin James.
Apologies from Councillor Ron Hussey, and also that Councillor Konieczko is on a train which didn't leave Waterloo at the desired time.
Councillor Minnis-Bound.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies also from Councillor McIntyre, Councillor Golding and Councillor Court.
Mr. Mayor, we bringing the people in that haven't come in the chamber yet?
Oh, haven't they? Nobody told them. Once we finish, they will come in. Oh. Everybody is here. Oh dear, I didn't notice them. For those who are still outside, once my chaplain and my other invitee left, I thought that you were going to be all coming back, and I've already started the meeting. So all it was Just to, yes. So all those who have come back, would you please to ensure that you have signed with your voting cards? Yeah. Councillor Minas-Brown?
I wanted to ask another administrative question, if I may, Mr. Mayor. We were informed by officers that VisiNet was down today, but a new alternative Wi-Fi with password with details would be provided for the chamber, and there doesn't seem to be anything.
Just a minute. Have we got any answer for that? Okay. Can you pass that? Can you pass that everywhere? Yeah, okay. Thanks very much indeed. So we are, apologies for absence we have already taken, except Councillor Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Tony Jones.
Tony Jones. Thank you. We come to declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest? No? Councillor Laura James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say, just for a point of clarification, transparency on motion 14, I'm a member of Unison.
Noted. Yeah. Oh, Councillor Lee.
I guess we would all have to put down, as per our declaration of register of interests, we're all likely part of a union. So,
Every member of Labour.
Mr. Mayor?
If it is in the register of interest, no one need to declare their interest.
are you sure?
Okay, okay. Hold on. Any other declaration of interest? No. Okay. We have to. Councillor Tastain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say I own an EV, and that will be coming up in motion. So has anybody else got EVs here too?
Councillor Dillo. Councillor Perry.
EV.
And Councillor Arun. Mulalineni. And Councillor Cubitt.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I'd just like to declare that I'm a member of the Free Speech Union.
I thought, is it all in the declaration of interest? Yes, Councillor Band.
Just a question that I have, Mr. Mayor. It's probably a question that you might need to seek assistance from the monitoring officer. We've heard a lot of declarations of interest, whether it's unisons or people who own an EV. What does that mean? Often the monitoring officer tells us about dispensations.
Yes, I'll invite you to speak.
Thank you. So some councillors approached me beforehand for advice in relation to certain things, which I've given advice on. So if it doesn't impact on financial situation or your disclosable pecuniary interests, then it's not an issue for tonight. So I don't think you need to. I think you're fine to participate and vote in it.
Okay, everybody got that point? So we continue with the meeting. Minutes of the meeting held on 19th December 2024. I will move the minutes or a correct record. Is there a seconder?
I'm happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Are the minutes agreed? Thank you. I will sign the minutes. I'll do that later. Now we come to announcement. I would like to make the following announcement. My spring concert to mark the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen's birth in nearby Steventon and the 80th anniversary of VE Day will be held at Anvil on Saturday, 1st of March at 7:30. This is all in aid of my charities. Book your tickets to avoid disappointment. Thank you. Now, question from the members of the public. We have received one question from the public. Mr. Graham, you have 2 minutes to ask your question.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The subject is Camrose Football Ground. In the context that there are only two parties involved with the Camrose Ground, these being Basingstoke District, Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council and the developer, was previously Basron and now SNG. Basingstoke had two enclosed football grounds in 2016, one being the Camrose, an FA Grade B. When you talk about grades, you should really think about capacities. The lower the A, B, C, A is the highest and B further down is lower. So the Camrose was one at Grade B and HFA Winklebury was FA Grade E. Previously, the Camrose had a capacity of 5,000 spectators and HFA Winklebury 1,000. Now the town has just one football stadium at HFA Winklebury, which has been upgraded to FA Grade C, capacity 1,950. So the question is, can the council advise when the town will have its FA Grade B stadium restored or replaced? Clearly, after 8 years, some action is now desperately required. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morrow, would you like to respond?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Graham, for presenting your question at full council. Your commitment and resolve in fighting for the Camrose ground is unwavering. At this time, there are no concrete plans in place for a step 2. That's the ground grading level now. Grade B is the old way of doing it. Pretty much same criterias. Yeah, so we have no concrete plans in place for a step 2 stadium in Basingstoke. The actions that we have taken since taking charge of this council in 2023 are that we have met with Basingstoke Town Community Football Club to look at their business plan and the potential of a new stadium on borough land at the leisure park. We also made soft inquiries to the majority landowner at the Camrose site previously, but it was clear that there were no negotiations to be had. Both of the above options would require significant investment and would put a financial burden on Basingstoke Town Community Football Club and potentially put a risk to the sustainability of the club. Moving forward, we support Basingstoke Town Community Football Club's aspirations of their own home and a stadium that meets their need. We encourage the sustainable growth of the club, and we will support the club when opportunities arise. A great example of this is the opening of the new clubhouse that is nearing completion. The clubhouse will give the club a much needed social hub and importantly increase the club's income to help with their financial stability. I will take this opportunity to acknowledge the hard work and commitment put in by the club, its supporters and volunteers, and thank Basingstoke Town Community Football Club for the respect that the club has shown to this administration. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question, Mr. Graham?
Yes. Right. Okay. Got a diagram and a couple of pictures which you may find of interest. Now, the first one is a sketch. Now, here we've got Winchester Road. The bit nearest Winchester Road originally belonged to, well, in more recent times it was Bazrond, and now it's SNG. So that's that bit around there. The bit at the back is what we're talking about at the present time from what I've been watching with your council meetings. This bit in blue, this long strip. Now, it is referred to as a sort of insignificant bit of strip, but I don't think it is, to be perfectly honest.
Mr. Graham, your question.
And what I've got is an actual picture of the ground as it was when Rafi Razak took over. Now, what you had was a very, very tidy ground, as you can see. You see that? Now, this stand here was the Victor Meldrew stand. It had all these old codgers like me moaning like hell about what was going on in the football pitch. The Victor Meldrew stand. That was built by Basingstoke Council in 1957. 1957. Would you believe that? Now, going back along, soon after Razak took over, that was diagnosed as being asbestos. Okay, asbestos. And fans, to the credit, done research, and it came up and it said the best way we can protect ourselves is to paint it. And they painted it in the town's colours, blue and yellow. That was you look at that, a nice tidy ground. You look at another one, same stand. It's not just an insignificant bit of ground, it's actually quite a sizable bit of ground, isn't it?
Mr. Graham, would you please go to your question?
Okay, I'll come to my question, but it's not an insignificant bit of ground. So I'll move on to my question. But before that, just before that, there was another document that I would like to show you. And that document is given by the Right Honourable William Viscount Camrose and the Right Honourable Mary Agnes Camrose. There's the signatures from the council. Basingstoke Council, we had the mayor, and we had the town clerk. And that makes that bit of ground significant. You may not think it is, but it is. And that is my opinion, and that is an opinion I can assure you.
Please ask your question. Yes.
Right, so my question is, please show patience. Right, so here's my follow-up question. Over the last 8 years, there has been little in the way of debate in this council chamber in respect to the Camrose football ground. We understand all discussions have been behind closed doors in attempts to resolve the saga. With very few exceptions, no representation has been afforded to the residents of the town in respect to coming up with a plan to restore or replace the Camrose football ground. It is constantly stated that there is nothing the council can do and the developers must somehow be allowed to build on the stadium. Obviously, there are many legal issues in respect to the Camrose covenant and the leases on the covenant. We understand that the council has had all legal advice. So my question is, in respect to the legal people giving advice, do we know who they are? Secondly, are they capable of giving the quality and thoroughness of the legal advice that would be derived if the Camrose ground issues were forwarded to the High Court?
Mr. Graham, would you please listen? There's only one supplementary
I've finished.
question. Just one. Okay?
Well, I've finished it.
I'll
Want me to read it
take
again?
Okay, just finish up, yeah.
Do you want me to read it again? Yeah, okay. Over the last 8 years, there has been little in the way of debate in the council chamber in respect to the Camrose football ground.
Please don't read it again.
Oh,
I'd ask Councillor Morrow to respond to the supplementary question.
Sorry, guys. Thank you very much.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and we do have deep empathy with what was lost and what your experiences at the Camrose. I have a memory of watching it on the TV, the FA Cup game. I'm afraid your question to me was a lot of statement. I don't quite understand the question, what you're looking for.
Well, the question is, why the local people not been represented for 8 years?
Mr. Graham, it's already, Mr. Morrow is answering the question. Please listen. Yeah.
Yes, you're talking about something before I was at the council. I don't think he's got anything to say. I could pass it over to Councillor James, who was there. He may be able to answer who the legal people were, but it doesn't sound like a question that is anything to do with the future, I'm afraid.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Petitions. There are no petitions presented this evening. Resignations and appointments. Are there any changes to committee seats? Councillor Minnesbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, I have 3 changes I'd like to make. One is to the E&I committee, and I would like to move Councillor McIntyre into a sub-position and Councillor Carr as a main member. On resident services, moving Councillor McIntyre to a substitution place and Councillor Isaac to a member. And on the standards committee, if I may, Councillor McIntyre to substitution and Councillor Memoleni as a member. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? No. So are there any nomination to fill vacancies outside, on the outside bodies listed? No? Okay. So we come to our next item, which is a medium-term financial strategy and budget update report, 2025-26 to 2028-29. Moving on the budget report, the co-leader will make his budget speech. So it is Councillor James. Will you please make your budget speech?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start by setting out the context for this year's budget and the MTFS and which maps out the future years. When we started the budget process, we sat there with the last year with £200,000 as a deficit, which was easily manageable. Then Rachel Reeves delivered her budget and the employer national insurance was increased. We were told the government had a magic formula which would compensate us. It was more of a tragic formula and it less than half compensated us. It left roughly £350,000 a year of extra cost that had not been met by central government. Over the MTFS period, that's £1.4 million. When the final finance settlement was delivered in December, the government had changed the minimum funding guarantee. Historically, the government had always put additional money into an extra line to make sure you never lost money on year when budgets changed. However, they changed the formula and now included the £350,000 we'd get from increasing council tax. Whether we increase it or not, they removed £350,000 from that grant. So that's also cost us £350,000 a year, which again has removed £1.4 million from the MTFS period. So, Mr. Mayor, Labour's austerity programme has resulted in a £2.8 million cut to government funding over the MTFS, and if you look at that deficit in the final year of that budget, it's about £2.9 million, and that's why we are where we are. What do we know about what government are planning next? Years of one-year settlements have increased our dependency on forecasts, and the government has promised to restore the rolling 3-year funding settlement, which would give us some sort of certainty and allow for better planning. And whilst it'd be good to have more certainty, there's no certainty it will be good. We know the government faces its own fiscal challenges. Winter fuel payments were just the first step. Further welfare cuts for now soon, and we already know the government is slashing foreign aid budgets to increase defence spending to 2.5%. They haven't announced how they're going to get to the 3%. So local government is at risk. And in relation to local government specifically, the only information we have is that council funding will not be protected. Funding will be prioritised to areas of high deprivation. So we are not likely to gain anything out of that. So that 2.8 million gap is something we need collectively to address locally. We have a culture in the council of looking at how we can deliver the same level of service at lower cost by more efficient ways of working. And I have every confidence in the Cabinet and the senior officers to continue that work. We will build on the success of the property team in recent years, maximising the revenue we get from property portfolio, and our Treasury team will make sure we maximise our returns, balancing the need to increase return whilst maintaining the current level of risk. At the level of 2.9 million, I'm confident those measures will significantly reduce that gap over the next few years without making any cuts to frontline services. But Mr Mayor, the amendments on the agenda tonight could increase that deficit to 3.9 million collectively, at which point I do not see how we could reasonably close the gap. So cuts would be likely. And I think it's fair to raise that we will record the names of all the councillors that support, particularly in relation to the parking motion, parking amendment and the winter fuel amendment. We will record the names of the councillors who support those amendments, so we can then read them out again if we are forced to make cuts in future years. Mr Mayor, last year this administration moved quickly to enhance frontline services. The feedback from the work of our Make a Difference team has been universally positive. I will say I'm very lucky because I get all my friends emailing me pictures of kittens and their new dog, apart from Laura James, who sends me pictures of before and after in Buckskin, Brookvale and anywhere it begins to be, which I do appreciate. It's changed the way communities feel about their area. It's raised the standards of our public realm. We've also boosted the street care, ground maintenance resources to maintain that higher standard that we're setting as we work our way around the borough. I want to thank our operatives, particularly those who met me in Blackdown, absolutely peeing down with rain. But they carried on anyway, I left. They come out in all weathers to restore pride in our areas. And we want to do more. And as a result of climate change, wetter and hotter weather has increased the growing season, making it harder to manage weeds. So this year's budget will fund an additional weed spraying that will seek to address this. The boosted play area team are working at pace to bring some of our older play areas to modern standards. Play areas in Hatchwarren, Chinham, Popley and Northern are scheduled, which will follow the reopening of Sinclair Drive play area, as we want to encourage people to get active and lead healthier lives. And for our larger parks, longer opening hours of our public toilets will increase accessibility. One of the big challenges in this budget was absorbing the cost of introducing food waste to boost our recycling rates. For decades, Basingstoke has sat near the bottom of the recycling table. We pretended we can keep doing what we've always done, hoping for a different outcome. That's changing. We'll introduce weekly food waste collection during the transition period. We'll also maintain weekly residual waste collection to help residents adjust to the changes, and the budget has absorbed that cost. More help as supporting residents make that transition will come from the Green Team, as improving recycling will help the borough move towards net zero. Mr Mayor, the Green Team were originally a 2-year project, but it's proven so successful, this budget will make the Green Team permanent. Not only are they helping households reduce their carbon emissions, but their work also inevitably helps thousands of households reduce their utility bills. Not just one-off help from a payout, but ongoing savings that will last forever. And this is just part of our approach to reducing poverty in the borough. This budget provides some initial funding towards implementing an anti-poverty strategy, working with partner agencies. In the cost of living crisis, we use taxpayers' funds to treat the symptoms of poverty. And we know from the number of people who came back year after year, this approach was ineffective for many. We need to build a better understanding of the causes of poverty and tackle those causes. The anti-poverty strategy will use our strong relationships with registered social landlords that often support residents as part of their offer, the CAB, who have also put additional funding into this year, the DWP are the experts on benefits, and Basingstoke Voluntary Association and faith groups who have the human resource that can go out and help people, so we can help people out of poverty rather than simply live with it. This is about the council using its influence, because we know throwing our influence at a problem is often more effective than throwing money at it. It was the council's influence as landowner that meant a lease adjustment moved the ice rink from being a decade of decline and uncertainty to an estimated £3 million of investment and repair, which today we heard is making good progress, on track to be delivered. The ice pad will be repaired, the stands will be repaired, new toilets installed, new food areas and reception areas as well. We have now secured ice in Basingstoke for many years to come. It was also a tweak to the lease at Festival Place that will see half the top floor of Festival Place transformed into a leisure venue, delivering new and exciting activities for our residents whilst attracting more people to visit Basingstoke. And as soon as we were advised that WH Smith's was closing, we were able to use our influence to work with the Post Office to make sure the service was re-provided as soon as possible. And Mr Mayor, whilst retail is changing, we're seeing a reduction in the number of vacant units as the daytime economy improves. I don't know any other town centre that can say this. And this year we'll move free parking into the yards to the evenings to support the recovery of the nighttime economy that hasn't recovered in the same way. A further boost to the nighttime economy will come from the work we are doing to increase live music scene in our town centre, working with landlords to showcase local musical talents. This links to a wider agenda to support the wellbeing in the borough, which will focus on younger people this year. Arguably the generation most impacted by lockdown in important years of their development, but also a group which is least well provided for in our events programme at present. The council will develop an event looking at both extreme and virtual sports to change that. Mr Mayor, we have a council to be proud of, a team of officers we are grateful for, delivering services other councils can only dream of. This budget keeps that going for just extra 10p a week, so I ask you to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Minas-Brown, would you now make your budget speech?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Tonight we consider a budget that in some areas does nothing better than tinker at the edges, but ultimately fails to grasp the scale of the challenges ahead. We see an attempt to make small gains, like unhelpful increases in car parking charges, but these feel almost trivial when set against the financial storm that we know is coming. The co-leader mentioned some of the changes by the current new central government, but this storm we're about to see is like no storm this borough has seen, certainly since the creation of Basingstoke and Deane 50 years ago. So what is that looming crisis that we should be brutally honest about? In just a few years, possibly by 2028, this council may no longer exist in its current form. We face the real prospect of being merged with neighbouring authorities, some of whom have weaker financial positions and planning than our own. That merger will not be an act of choice, but of necessity, forced by the current government. And yet we are being told by the government that, that we must pay for these forced reorganisations ourselves. And what will that cost, Mr Mayor? If we look at the experience of councils not too far away, Wiltshire, Hertfordshire, the price tag is likely to put our current budget gap it will pale into insignificance. What will that cost be? £10 million, £20 million, at the very least. And yet within this budget, there is little to no recognition of that reality. The pressures on services that at the same time are going to be merged into whatever these new councils have as far as boundaries. But if we looked at what that meant for our portion, just covered by our residents in Basingstoke and Deane, for things like children's services, adult social care, that demand continues to rise with very little extra funding from central government, and only marginal increases where people are expected as councils to put that whole funding pressure onto residents through council tax increases. We already see a significant budget gap forecast for the fourth year, 2028-29, and still there is no credible plan for how we prepare for this massive financial shock we're about to experience. And that ultimately, the much larger financial pressures just around the corner. So let's think about the scale of that gap, shall we, which is just 3 years away, and put it into stark terms for our Basingstoke and Deane residents. A potential funding gap that if we looked at Hampshire County Council and their figures and divvied that up to our residents, it probably equates to about £24 million, in addition to the 20 million potential costs for transition to whatever those new councils look like. And that's just for our share. That might give us an idea about scale, but even when we consider the transition costs, it will add another £20 million. So that's £44 million in financial pressures just around the corner, 3 years away at the absolute maximum, along with this identified gap in our own forecasts of 2.4 million. That gives you an indication of the scale, Mr. Mayor. And yet, despite the scale of this looming crisis, this budget alludes to the potential scale in the officer's commentary, but certainly does nothing to prepare us for it, potentially with a reserve for just over £5 million. We are sleepwalking. Well, actually, not sleepwalking. We are being led blindfolded by the current government into a financial perfect storm, and those responsible for setting this budget are failing in their duty to prepare for what is coming. Indeed, Mr. Mayor, let's also consider a phrase in this document pack, page 51, item 11.5, that we have never seen in this council before. And I quote, "This means that all available capital resources, with the exception of Section 106 funding, has now been allocated. The current money we have in our pots and in our plans will have run out. Not some, Mr. Mayor, not most, Mr. Mayor, but all available capital, Mr. Mayor." So, how do we keep an eye on our key priorities and projects? We've heard how important many of them are from the co-leader. We have many strategically important projects for our local economy and the wider North Hampshire. They are strategically important for growth and should be driving our economy, creating jobs, and securing our and our residents' financial futures. Yet, worryingly, these projects are now slowly merging into the same timeframes as local government reorganisation. This creates another perfect storm where financial instability, increasing service pressures, service transformation, and investment all collide. We must be laser focused on these things coming over the horizon, not distracted by some of the small detail in this budget. Action is required now. I have no doubt that our employees are up to the job. They have proven time and time again their dedication, their resilience, and their ability to manage through difficult times. What I do question is whether this budget even recognises the financial shock that we are about to experience. It certainly does not do everything it could or even should to prepare us for it. A council budget is not just about balancing the books for the next 12 months or indeed the next 24 months. It is about preparing for the future. Right now, this budget does little to prepare us, Mr. Mayor, for what is coming, for what we cannot afford, and to let short-term thinking and small measures distract us from. They are fundamental and require fundamental financial thinking to protect our residents. Let's get serious about protecting our residents. We've had lots of conversations about local government reorganisation, what that might mean for sizes and boundaries, and that happens across the county. But what it means for us in Basingstoke and Deane is our financial security, which has for decades been strong, now is put at risk. And therefore we must prepare before it catches us out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ibrahim, would you now make your budget speech?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the Labour Group, I welcome this year's balanced budget, which aligns with the Council's key priority. It demonstrates a commitment to delivering both statutory services and additional initiatives while also investing in this time growth. It is reassuring to see that it has been done with a thorough risk assessment and mitigation plan in place. We have a duty as a council to set a balanced budget, a responsibility to our residents to ensure that the budget reflects their needs while securing the long-term financial sustainability of the Council. I was pleased to see that the updated medium-term financial strategy has addressed the budget gap existed in the previous version and now presents a balanced budget from 2025-26 through to 2027-28. This provides much-needed financial stability and a solid foundation for future planning. It is also encouraging to see the Council increasing its returns from investment properties, strengthening financial resilience, reducing reliance on the central government grants, and diversifying funding resources. This proactive approach is crucial in ensuring long-term sustainability. However, I remain mindful of the projected 2.86 million budget gap in 2028-29. The outlined approach to closing this gap appears reasonable, particularly the focus on income generation and reviewing reserves policies. In line with this, I would urge the administration to expedite work with a property advisor, GLL, to identify and advance additional revenue opportunities. I was particularly pleased to see continued funding for the White Ribbon Domestic Abuse Initiative and the introduction of funds to support the anti-poverty strategy. Both of these initiatives play an important role in supporting some of the most vulnerable members of our community. Engaging residents in key decision-making has always been a priority for our group. While the budget consultations saw relatively low participation compared to our town population, I believe that Council had fulfilled its duty to provide residents with the opportunity to give feedback. That being said, I hope future consultations take a more thoughtful approach to increase engagement, ensure better representation, and a stronger sense of public ownership over budget decisions. I'm also aware that the consultation has been complemented by the use of priority-based budgeting methodology, which is ensure financial allocation is based on the impact and the outcome opposed to activities, which is an approach I very much support. While the Labour support many aspects of the budget, we are very disappointed to see proposed increase in EV charging costs and sports facilities fees. These measures do not align with the Council key priorities, and therefore we are submitting amendments to this budget this evening to address these concerns. All of these amendments are balanced and reasoned, and we have sought advice from the officers. So despite what the Lib Dem leader have said that the Council can't afford amendments like this, actually we can afford it, and it's worked, all the numbers work it out. Mm-hmm. I would like also to say the Labour Group will continue to hold the Council to account, offer support to the current administration to ensure it serves our residents well, and challenge them when they fail to meet residents' expectations. We have a long way to go in making up for the years of failure under Tory administration. Overall, the Labour Group support this budget and the Council's strong financial position where it is now, a balanced budget, healthy reserves, and no borrowing. This will provide the Council with the ability to be ambitious and plan for a long-term investment and growth opportunity for our town. Finally, I would like to acknowledge and thank the officers for their hard work in preparing this budget and for their dedication throughout the year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Harvey, would you now make your budget speech?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is an absolute privilege to serve the people of our borough. I've always believed that we have the ability as Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council to make change mean something more, change that lifts our communities and solves the issues we face. You learn quickly when you take this hot seat that solutions take hard work. That's the hard yards behind the scenes where you can't shout about it, and they often make the biggest difference. And sometimes it's the quiet wins that mean the most. So in the last 20 months, since we became the administration in May 2023, we have refocused this council onto new priorities, and we have been working our way through a number of legacy issues. The debate about those priorities and our future has never been more important. There is a scale of change coming that we are facing that will have a huge and lasting impact on our communities. The government has decided that it wants to radically change local government, and it's important that people understand the implications. Government has set the rules and they will ultimately decide, but we need to shape the future. We need to shape our own destiny as much as we can. The government has declared that economic growth is its number one priority. Well, it's our priority too. However, banking on housing growth to dig your way out of economic hole is not sustainable. Growth that means jobs and investment to improve the lives of people throughout our borough should be our focus. And building housing not for the sake of a broken market, not for the sake of targets handed down from any government, but homes built that meet the needs of our local residents, socially rented homes, homes for helping first-time buyers, homes that offer the opportunity for downsizing. Sometimes it appears people forget the actual decisions they made when they were in power. And as we've heard this evening, sometimes they live in an alternate universe to everybody else. The Cabinet made a decision in September 2022, to delay the local plan. This administration decided from the beginning of May 2023 to drive forward and accelerate the delivery of the local plan. It was a Conservative MP, former MP, and her councillor supporters she was pictured with, who called on us only 9 months ago to delay the local plan further and to slow it down. Look at the salutary lesson of the new hospital. All of the games played before and during the general election, with promises lost in campaigning. Funding was there, we were told. It was fully funded, we were told. Ring-fenced, we were told. Not true. It was never true. And now the new government have delayed the hospital by over a decade. We simply cannot wait that long. The people of Basingstoke and North Hampshire cannot wait until 2037. We cannot grow as the government demands we do if we do not have the infrastructure to go with it. And it's not just a hospital. I could be talking about electricity or water or roads or public transport. People see the lack of a GP or a dentist or the lack of teachers and police, and they are rightly angry at being failed by government over many years. What a revelation it would be for central government to have a grown-up conversation with local government to discuss the future of services, housing, growth and investment in infrastructure, and to treat us as equal partners. In the last 20 months, we have been moving at pace on major investments and projects. We already do more than any other borough. We ask more of ourselves because we always want to be the best for our residents. I've spoken to major businesses and small. I've spoken to people trapped on the housing register. I've spoken to residents furious, for example, with the county council and government for failing them on SEND. Residents who can't get a GP appointment, who don't have access to services because they haven't been built yet. We are very much aware of the message that comes back loud and clear from our communities across our borough. People want to see a borough grow sustainably. They want housing that meets the needs of their families. They want jobs that pay well and offer security. They want schools that meet their children's needs and offer the best education to all. They want to see our villages thrive without being destroyed by speculative development. They want infrastructure that sustains communities, including health services, especially GPs. They want to protect the environment from pollution. They want to feel safe and secure, and they want services that deliver for their neighbourhood. And that defines the agenda that we must rise to. So delivering many down north was not easy, but we did the drawdown within 18 months of taking office. Getting agreement to refurbish the ice rink wasn't easy, but the work is now well underway, and we said we would keep ice in Basingstoke, and we are. And we're working closely with Basingstoke Town Community Football Club because we want them to have a successful future. And we are in discussions about their aspirations and how we can work with them. We inherited a legacy of issues, but through hard work we are making progress and we are sorting them out. But we are also looking forward with real vision for the future of our borough. This last year, Basingstoke and Dean broke through £8 billion in gross added value to our economy. We have over 7,300 businesses in our borough. We have 85,000 jobs in our borough. We are actively in discussions with major partners for upwards of £1 billion of inward investment into Basingstoke and Dean. Now, what does that mean? It means new jobs, it means new businesses, new education opportunities, new homes, new green spaces, and change that will improve the lives of residents who live in our borough. Investment for a university in Basingstoke that would be truly groundbreaking, that would provide the opportunity to unlock the talent we have in R&D, in medtech, in life sciences and STEM subjects, that will offer careers that will change lives and give entrepreneurs the environment to make success, harnessing the technologies of the future such as AI. Investment in our town centre on a scale that we've not seen for over 25 years, with an appetite for regeneration that will deliver a remarkable transformation of our town. It will mean new shops and businesses, homes and community and public services, new streets and roads, changed to renew and reinvigorate our town. Investment for housing that would deliver hundreds of socially rented homes year on year. Investment to transform our housing estates with regeneration proposals that will see billions invested over the next 30 years. We've already seen new shops and businesses open here, and there is a willingness to invest. An investment from our businesses who want to locate here because, and I quote, "The vision of the council working alongside the public and private sector is inspiring. But you can't let the genie out of the bottle on the scale of change the government has declared without it having an impact on our priorities. So I want the government as a partner, as an enabler to our ambition and our aspiration, but we need them to respect our mandate as much as they remind us of theirs." So Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council has existed for over 50 years. And whatever your view of the council, we are the local democratic representative body that delivers many of the services that directly affect people's lives. And what do we know? We know that Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council is very successful because we offer services that many other councils do not, at a council tax that's lower than most other areas. And unlike those other councils, we have in recent years invested directly in our frontline services. We have not cut them. And we are asking for just 10p a week more in council tax to deliver those services. For anyone that thinks freezing council tax is still a good idea, let's be clear. One of the many lessons from Conservative-controlled Hampshire County Council is the dire financial straits that it is in. It froze its council tax, taking millions out of its council tax base forever. We're not going to play politics with the sound management of this borough's finances or the services we deliver to residents, because that future inheritance that we offer in the future is absolutely critical. So I want to highlight some of the key areas of work to celebrate among the many areas of work that's going on to deliver our priorities. We have put tackling domestic violence at the heart of our council and its priorities. There is a significant action plan we have been implementing, and it has been profound in the way that it has changed the way we work as a council. In October 2021, the council passed a motion to become the White Ribbon accredited, with unanimous support from all members in this chamber. That action plan was approved by the White Ribbon with exemplary feedback, and formal recognition started in October 1st, 2022. We are now seeking to renew that accreditation. By the end of the same year, 2022, we had also committed to pursuing the Domestic Abuse Housing Alliance accreditation, which is now almost complete, and it will be no mean feat in achieving this accreditation. And we are delivering new and better services in support of tackling domestic abuse as a council. As a council, we take domestic abuse very seriously, and that is why it is a priority for this administration. We're investing £50,000 this year directly to support outreach work of the Citizens Advice Basingstoke, operating out of our community centres in Oakridge, Popley, Buckskin and Southam. We are working to establish a food partnership which will work with many groups who provide vital services to so many in our borough who are in food poverty. These actions define the direction we want to take our work on anti-poverty, directly lifting people out of poverty through our work with partners. which is a step change from just offering financial support. Drawing on the amazing work going on already in our borough and building on it. This Borough Council is going to buy May Place and refurbish the building. Hampshire County Council are cutting their revenue funding for homelessness services in Basingstoke from April 2026. We are redesigning the contract to ensure that this vital homelessness accommodation and service survives despite the Conservative County Council cuts. We're leading this important piece of work, and it will be a major part of our ongoing homelessness and housing strategy. And I want to thank our events team. They're not a statutory service. They're a choice we make as a council. We make many choices as a council, and we're privileged to be able to make those choices. But they come with a cost, and it's a cost we're willing to pay for the excellence that they deliver. We're proposing a new event in the summer to showcase BMX and skating, amongst other extreme sports. Aimed at teenagers and young adults, this will add a value to our already amazing events programme. I'd like to read a few extracts from a letter that we received from a resident. This evening, we've been to the Let's Glow Trail. We just want to express what a brilliant initiative it is and how grateful we are you've chosen to run it for another year. We loved seeing the top of town filled with families on a Friday evening and local businesses benefiting from the pedestrian traffic the event generated. We found ourselves looking in shop windows and reading menus of local independent restaurants that we wouldn't normally have time to stop and consider. This is the first place either of us have lived where we can really feel the impact of the local authority on the lives of people in our town. There is a tangible sense that the council is working hard to improve things in Basingstoke. We really notice and appreciate the everyday things too. The flowers maintained around Church Square or the top of town, the painted benches, the lovely folk who empty the bins who always say hello when I jog past them. We can't stop telling our friends and colleagues about what a surprisingly wonderful place Basingstoke is to live. Thank you all for so much for the hard work you do to make Basingstoke a great place to live. And please keep doing events like Let's Glow. They are very much appreciated. And I'd like to thank the 10,000 people who turned out last Saturday night to enjoy the Let's Glow event and put money into our local businesses. Our events programme is second to none. It is a nationally recognised award-winning events programme that brings huge footfall to our town centre. And it's just about time we stop talking Basingstoke down, we stop talking our town centre down and start working with our local businesses to build them up. We know from the forums that we run regularly how much they appreciate the hard work of our officer team in working with them to generate the footfall that makes a difference to their businesses. We are running one of the most popular events programmes in the region and in the country by choice, by what we do in this budget. And it's these priorities and many more that define what we are as an administration. So there is one thing that we are absolutely clear on. We know we have a successful council that delivers way and above beyond for our community. But whatever changes may come in the years ahead, we have two very clear objectives. Firstly, to carry on delivering now for our residents, getting on with the job for Basingstoke and Dean. Secondly, to embed the values and priorities of our community in a new council that may come. And I've got to be honest, I really don't recognise the description from the previous speech of the leader of the Conservative group. The Conservative County Council is languishing in £182 million of debt this year in its budget. That's projected to increase to 266 million next year. You talk about exceptional circumstances, that's exceptional circumstances. It's a shame we didn't develop many down many years earlier, that capital could be sitting in our bank accounts now delivering socially rented housing that was promised over 30 years ago. It really is another universe. The universe I want to live in is a vision for a council for North Hampshire that focuses on the opportunities that a single council for all services could bring, of a difference that a new children's services department designed around the child could make, that could bring to our local children and young people the kind of hope we want, the kind of services they deserve. And that's the same for many of the services that a new council would run. And at the same time, we have the duty to protect the interests, assets, and the values of this council in whatever comes, which means, from the start, rejecting any kind of larger unitary council across the rest of Hampshire. It's time for Hampshire County Council to go quietly into the night. As we move forward honestly and openly seeking the best for North Hampshire, that includes Basingstoke and Deane, that seeks the best for our residents. So I commend this budget as it is. I commend the amazing work being done by your officer team to help deliver on our priorities, and I thank them, because we should also remember them when we talk about all of this change that's coming. Remember the amazing team we have, and let's get on with the job of delivering for Basingstoke and Deane.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Would you please propose a Cabinet's budget and recommendations? Do we have a seconder? Yep. Thank you again, Councillor Harvey. As you are the seconder, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I think after that, I'm going to reserve my right to speak.
Good. Thank you. I will now open this item up for debate. Would someone like to propose an amendment? Councillor Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose a budget amendment to cap sports fees increase at 3%. And the reason for that is in relation to the residents' needs. A survey has identified that only 53% of residents have completed the survey were satisfied with sports and leisure service in Basingstoke, making this area is the lowest of all satisfaction. Furthermore, satisfaction level in South East and nationally are higher than in Basingstoke, according to this resident survey. This is a clear gap that requires addressing. Residents also identified the need for improved facilities and activities for young children and teenagers as key priorities. Given these findings, the Council's budget should be shaped by residents' feedback. This survey underscores the need to invest in sports facilities and ensure they are accessible rather than introducing additional barriers through fees increase. We must prioritise well-being and satisfaction of our residents, particularly in areas that impact community engagement and youth development. Councillors from all the sides of this chamber have always expressed their support for local sports and want to encourage residents to be active and use our sports facilities. If you really want to show your support to our residents, I would encourage you to vote in favour of this amendment this evening. Thank you.
I'll reserve my right to speak later, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. As part of this budget setting this year, a review of fees and charges was undertaken. Now, Mr. Mayor, the process is essentially asking officers to go away and find out how much does it cost to deliver this service, and they looked at all the individual sports pitches to arrive at the cost. It's then a decision about to what extent do we ask the taxpayer to subsidise that cost. And in this case, it was recognising that sport is really important, leisure is really important, being active, a healthy population is really important. So a discount is applied of 60%. So the general tax fund will meet 60% of the cost of the sports pitches. And then we do look at the other charges around us to see what's happening elsewhere in Hampshire. Most of Hampshire doesn't provide sports pitches because town and parish councils do. There is one that does, it's Rushmore, and that's about 10% higher than we are as a rule. And then we arrive at the figures before you. So that's how we got to where we are. It is something we do subsidise. What I do accept is this is one of those amendments where the amount of money involved is not particularly big. And so I would suggest whether or not this amendment goes through or whether the amendment fails, I think it's up to Resources and or Resident Services Committee to actually ask to look at, is there a fairer way of doing it? Because I personally think we have got the right method, but I'm totally relaxed with members of the opposition scrutinising it subsequently. It's unfortunate when the fees and charges paper went into scrutiny, they didn't request that come back before tonight's meeting, but I appreciate it weren't many meetings. But it can be scrutinised afterwards. The only thing we'll say is the amendment says set it out for the MTFS period, cap it at 3%. Actually, next year there's another budget. It may not be me doing it. It may not be this group doing it. So therefore, we can't commit to doing something for 3 years that we reviewed every year, but that's a minor matter. So I will be opposing the amendments, but I'm not really, it's a free vote on this side, recognising if people want to look at it again, they can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bound.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking Councillor Harvey for his wonderfully positive feedback about the festival and the events programme and the team which the Conservative administration had the great idea and resources to implement. I say that because I think sport is very much of a similar ilk. We've put a huge amount of investment into sports facilities over the years, and there is something about supporting our local sports clubs with a fair fee cap of just 3%. So it isn't just about affordability. We make sure sports facilities are inclusive. It is about making sure we have healthy residents and communities, but we also need to ensure that we do this by keeping costs low. I suspect, thinking about comparisons, that our level of activity is higher than Rushmore, and that may well be because our prices are lower. Our level of activity in the moderate to high level has always been above the national average. I suspect that is because of our facilities. We need to ensure that everyone, no matter their background or sporting interest, has the opportunity to stay active and engaged. Let's do our part. Let's keep sports accessible. Our community strong, our people healthy. It makes a huge difference to the cost to places like the NHS. So let's support this, let's be fair, and let's keep everybody in the game. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree too. Obviously, I'm for sports and lots of engagement. But what I will point out is that this has been a bit of work that the officer's done, and I've had a meeting where we went through this, and there are different levels of fees. There's 5%, 8%, and then Petanque, unfortunately, is 26%. So I don't know what they did wrong. So I would say, whichever way this vote goes, I do think we do need to get back into the committee and have a look at it to make sure that capping it at 3%, we're not actually making it really skewed. So happy, like we say, free vote from our side, but would recommend, like Gavin said, that we go back to committee with this just to make sure we're not skewing it too badly. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Oh, no, I'll invite the proposer.
Councillor Lee wants to speak. We've reserved his right.
Okay, yeah. Councillor Lee, you have reserved your right, so it's your turn to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it short because I know this meeting is terribly long on most occasions. I do encourage people to vote for this motion tonight. Obviously, cost of living crisis has gone up, and ultimately the cost of using sports facilities in Basingstoke is usually passed on to families. You know, we always pay pitch fees when we go to play football, or the same for rugby or for hockey. It's always passed on to families. So actually, by keeping this low, by removing that increase, we're saying to our residents that we recognise that there is a cost of living crisis going on, that people's pockets are stretched, and that we will, because we have the financial capability to do so, we will take care of those people. Obviously urge everyone to vote in favour for it, and thank you.
Thank you. Would the proposer of the amendment sum up, please?
Thank you for those who have expressed support for the amendment. I don't want to speak further on this. Very much we made our point about keeping sports accessible and affordable for our residents. So I really urge everyone in the chamber to vote in favour, and we can work out the logistics afterwards. Thank you.
Now I will take a vote on the amendment. So electronic voting, please. All right, given the vote, the amendment is carried. Sorry. Who is the next proposer for amendment? Councillor McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Removal of proposed EV charger fee increases. Now, I speak as an owner of electric vehicle. A number of us are in this chamber. As things stand, I can afford an electric vehicle because I'm a relatively well-off resident. Well, we all need to make the switch in the next 10 years. We all say we support the path to net zero, but if we price people out of making the transition to electric vehicles, we're setting ourselves up to fail. Increasing EV charging costs disincentivises people from making the switch. If we're serious about supporting drivers and cutting emissions, we must put our money where our mouth is and do what we can to reduce the costs for residents making that switch. Our amendment keeps the cost of EV charging more affordable, ensuring that everyday people aren't penalised for choosing to go green. Thank you.
Can I have a seconder for this amendment? Councillor Harper. Would you like to speak now?
Oh, right, thank you. Yeah, I just want to share my concern that Rennie raised in the charging price for the EV vehicles is will have a negative impact on current and potential users, and it might discourage the uptake of EV vehicles, especially in the context of the Council's broader climate goals. And we need positive incremental encouragements for the real and growing green economy, which is why I oppose any increase in EV charges, except perhaps at this time for Tesla cars, which I don't mind.
Councillor Harper, your maiden speech. Now, can I have Councillor Gavin James?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If they'd moved an amendment about Tesla cars, I definitely would have supported their destruction. Mr. Mayor, this follows the same process of the fees and charges. You look at the service, you say how much does it cost, and then you decide how much, to what extent should the public subsidise it. And that's exactly what happened here. When we first introduced fast chargers, they were introduced at cost. So effectively, whatever the cost of the electric, plus a small amount to obviously maintain the charger, that was passed on to the resident, which seemed perfectly fair. We then sat fees and charges at 3% every year. Now, you may have noticed, Mr. Mayor, that energy prices have changed a lot more than 3% in recent years. Can't think why, but they have dramatically. And don't forget, in your home use, you have an energy price cap. That's not the same on the street chargers that we use as well. So the price has risen massively to the point where we are losing money every time someone charges their vehicle. It was our view, including with the officers, that this is something we probably shouldn't subsidise, because we're effectively asking. I mean, if you go to somewhere like Brookvale, 60% of the residents don't even own a car, and now we're using their taxpayers' money to charge Councillor McCormack's car, which seems totally unfair. So that's why it's not fair to have residents subsidising the charging of private vehicles, which could include visitors to the borough, not even local residents. So for that reason, this year the charges do seem to be a spike, particularly for the fast chargers. I think the rapid chargers going up 4%, just to reflect recovery. It's cost recovery, that's all it is. What I will say as well, and I think, as people who have been elected might want to reflect on this, I think most EV chargers don't want a subsidy. I think most of them will totally get there is a cost of filling up your car, and that's what the cost is, and they'll pay it. But I do get there is a tiny risk that some of them may be miffed off. I totally understand that. And right now, there'll be a couple of thousand drivers potentially very upset because the charge is going up. But the ownership of electric cars is only going to increase. The cost of the subsidy is only going to increase. At some point, it will be completely unsustainable. And then we will have to charge the true cost of charging your vehicle. At that point, we'll upset 30,000 people. Now, I'm no elections expert, but maybe we should do something right today, potentially upsetting 3,000, but I appreciate if the Labour group would rather wait a few years and upset 30,000. I would reject this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Minnis-Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to talk to support this motion because I think this is about something slightly different. And I stand here as a ward councillor that includes places like Rooksdown, which is some of the most densely populated areas of our town, designed under the Prescott Urban Village principles, which means very often your car parking space is nowhere near your property, if you have a car parking space at all, that is. And I just wanted to point out that there are reasons why, because why wouldn't you? If you're a resident who could have a home charger, you would, because you'd end up paying probably 9 or 10p per kilowatt hour rather than our current fee on the destination charges, which I think is 34p. And let's just go through them, Mr. Mayor, if I may, which is actually costs. Some people can't afford the installation. Some houses have issues about capacity for their panel. There are issues about permitting that development. If I thought about some of our other parts of our ward, which has listed buildings, we have lots and lots of private tenants and housing association tenants in our wards. There's even the availability of installers, lead-in times for the equipment, and actually if I thought about the destination charges we have in Rooksdown, that's for probably a population of about 2,500. They're very, very busy, and you wouldn't choose to wait for them if you didn't have another option. We've talked a bit about driveways and parking space adjustments, and some of my residents' car parking spaces are a long way away from their properties. There's also something in the long term, which is a huge issue for us when we consider planning applications. Some of them don't have dedicated parking. We do have lots and lots of properties that are houses of multiple occupancy. There are issues with the grid, even though most of the grid in Rooksdown is relatively new. There are all sorts of issues about power, access, and whether there's a capacity to do it. So, Mr. Mayor, I think for me, this isn't necessarily just about cost. You would only use our charges if you absolutely had to, and there's something about fairness and access. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor West.
Hello. I just want to come back to Councillor James's point about getting from 2,000 drivers of EV vehicles to 30,000, whatever the number was that you spoke about. For us, we know that the biggest hurdle for anyone who's considering getting an electric vehicle and considering switching to an electric vehicle is cost. They're looking at how astronomical the cost is compared to what it is to get a cheap bang or a petrol car at the moment and still fill it up. The best possible way we can get from that 2,000 to that 30,000 that we really need to see driving those electric vehicles is making sure we keep the costs down right now whilst worries about the transition are so rife. And then when there's more people that are taking it up, yeah, I absolutely agree. Of course, at some point it's going to go up. But hopefully by that point, and our government are working as hard and fast as they can at it, we will have a good, strong green grid generating cheaper electricity in this country by that point, and you will not have to increase the price like you say that you do now.
Thank you. Councillor Konietzko.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Earlier on this month, this Cabinet adopted the borough's very first EV charging strategy. We are incredibly proud of that, and it goes to show how much we as an administration value and support EV charging in our borough. Since we came into power, we've rolled out dozens of EV chargers on land that we own in car parks throughout Basingstoke and Dean, and we've been pushing Hampshire Council very hard for them to start installing on-street chargers because they're the only ones who have permission to do that. And I'm pleased to say we are on the verge of getting them to start installing the the first on-street EV chargers here in Basingstoke and Dean. So we do support EV charging. I think that's absolutely clear, and we want to continue to support EV charging. But we need to do that sustainably. That's why we're rebalancing prices, and that's why I can't support this amendment this evening. I would also just make an additional point, because we're talking about costs and the cost of charging being potentially a barrier to adoption. The average cost of EVs, as we know, is very high at the moment. New EVs, I think the average price is somewhere north of £30,000. So I'm struggling to understand why, when you have to spend that much on a new EV, that increasing the cost of charging, as we're proposing here, is going to make a significant difference to people's adoption rates. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're conflating quite a lot here in the various speeches that have been given, and I think actually we're targeting the wrong thing. I think subsidising EV chargers in this borough is legitimised only if you can argue that all the other services that are being provided for all the other residents is good in terms of public transport, and we know that it isn't. You're asking people who would rather see money going into buses, going into things that they could afford to use, to subsidise people who can afford to buy an electric car. A couple of years ago, I took the plunge and bought an electric car, and actually it was the cost of the electric car that was the killer, not the filling it up. Actually using the electricity and using the chargers was not the issue, because actually the variation in charging across different providers was the issue. And actually the Borough Council offering it at cost enables us to invest in other things that will have far more effect potentially on tackling the climate emergency, and also, and I say this as well, tackling the ecological emergency, because they're both critical. And I can see the headlines in leaflets now going out saying, oh, you don't care about climate change, which would be absolutely wrong. Of course we do. That's why we're investing in solar power. That's why we're investing in our green open spaces. That's why we're investing in the environment ecologically, as much as offering a lot more EV chargers. Putting these things in costs money, and we're doing it. The county council aren't. The county council left us standing cold. They weren't willing to put their money where their mouth was. They cut it. We haven't. We've carried on investing in chargers that are also publicly accessible, because there are many of us who live in this borough in properties who will never ever be able to have an electric charger at home. So we did rely, and I relied on the public charging network. But there's a reality to this. I think there's an awful lot of people who would love to own an electric car who will never be able to until the actual cost of electric cars comes down. And that's the truth. They are a very expensive luxury item still. And the government that took away all the subsidies from them, that cut the ability for people to genuinely bridge that gap and afford it, was wrong. So we need to think about this very carefully, because it's a balancing act. These fees and charges have been worked out in order that we can invest in all those other key areas that will bring about real delivered good on the climate change and the ecological emergency. And all we are saying is that we must meet the cost of it, not subsidise it, not make money out of it, but meet it at cost for what it really charges, effectively the cost to the taxpayers of this borough at this moment in time. So I think we've just got to be careful we don't cross over so many different debates about planning or about buying cars, as I've done myself, but it's actually about the EV charging cost. It's only at cost. I think that's very reasonable to ask electric car owners in the borough.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, try and keep it relatively short and sweet. We're not asking for much. Again, it's balanced on the budget. It's not asking for us to break any laws. Councillor Gavin James, refers to subsidies and why should people who don't have electric cars subsidise those that do. I didn't go to the light show in Basingstoke. Why should I have to pay for that, Gavin? The reality is I pay for it because it makes this council a better place.
You were allowed to go, you're not allowed to go.
Whoa. Councillor Lee, please, don't name. Please carry on with the debate.
So the point is, we make a lot of subsidies in our council budgets. that a lot of other people don't pay for or don't use. We do it because it's the right thing, and this is the right thing. Let's not penalise people that have to go to charging points by an increase in their costs. Again, cost of living crisis. I've seen many councillors in this chamber complain about a cost of living crisis, vote against motions or vote for motions against the Labour government that were, looking at taking money away from people, and yet here we go, trying to actually not actually have a rise in people's costs, and here we are, we're saying, actually, screw the lot of you, we're happy to increase your costs. So, I'm obviously going to be voting for it. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Ibrahim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up on the argument made by my colleagues on the other side of this chamber, I think I can hear you. I understand where you're coming from, and I can see the point. But this council is not just about providing the basics needs. We are ambitious. We have been, the administration has been working very hard, and we acknowledged that earlier. We are looking into doing the best of the best for our residents. So this is not just about delivering the basic services to our residents. No, it's about taking that extra mile. And I see this as one of those extra mile that we can do. And it does have that knock-on effect, even though they are, as you said, those who are well off, those who own electric cars. But this is about sending that very clear message that we are a council who support environment, who support climate change, who are really serious about it, and no matter which approach we're taking, whatever opportunity are there for us to support any good action around climate change, we will do it. This is what we're going to do. And again, cost-wise, it has been worked out. It is fine. The budget can take it on, and that was an advice from the officers. So I really urge everyone in this chamber to think about this as we want to set the model as a council, as a district council for others. This is not about, we're doing what we can. We really, we're the best among the worst. No, we are ambitious and we want to do even better. And remember this, in a few years' time, this council will not be here. It's not going to exist anymore. Let's leave a good legacy by actually establishing that very high standard of supporting residents across all areas, including EV charging and climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite the proposer to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank various members for their contributions to the debate of this amendment tonight. I'm particularly interested to hear from Councillor Minas-Bown. I have similar issues with residents in my ward where they cannot park near where they live, can't run a cable out the front door to their car, so they're reliant on public charging. If it is a choice, and I know from my own personal experience, I will charge out the back of my house rather than pay 90p per kilowatt hour for a rapid charger. I only use a rapid charger out of desperation. Interestingly, that kind of cost to charge an electric car is commensurate with what people are paying with petrol vehicles at the moment. But the reason why, well, there's two reasons why private electric charge points are expensive to run. One of which is electricity that's generated from fossil fuels. Why have energy prices increased? Demand for fossil fuels. We haven't moved quickly enough to make the transition to net zero. We are paying that price, our residents are paying that price, and switching to electric vehicles is only beginning. We had a parliamentary report at the beginning of the week that said that we need to be looking at people replacing their electric boilers, and putting in home batteries, putting in solar powers, less reliance on the grid. We are paying inflated prices on the open market for fossil fuels. And that is why we are in the predicament we are in. And the cost of electric cars is coming down. We are behind the curve on this. Norway have got something like 70%, 80% electric vehicle ownership. We should be aspiring to be with the best and driving that transformation, not offering excuses as to how hard it is and penalising our residents. So I thank everybody for their contribution tonight, and we shall now move to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will take a vote on the amendment. Amendment lost. Yeah. Next proposer for amendment? No, we haven't got it again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Support fund for pension-age residents. We've recently had a motion passed. The council has spoken about pensioners falling through the gaps in support. Here's a chance to generally do something about it, rather than just complaining about the government. Our amendment would create a fund specifically for low-income pensioners who don't qualify for other assistance. If this motion doesn't get carried tonight, it will prove that the words of the other parties in this chamber have been hollow. When faced with the option of taking action for pensioners, they would be choosing to ignore that opportunity. And while there may have been public consultations and other things, there won't have been, or officer consultations and other things, there won't have been anything on this. And I'd also like to add that we have got fuel increases coming. Again, this is the demand for fossil fuels. So this is our chance to do something about this and soften the blow to our pensioners who fall into that category of relatively low income, but not low enough to qualify for pension credit. Thank you.
Councillor Lee. I need a seconder for this amendment. Councillor West.
Yeah, I reserve my right to speak.
Do you want to speak now or reserve your right? All right. So, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, short and sweet. And I look towards Councillor James again, who made a nice threat during his opening speech to take down names of those who vote for this motion and read them out when people start suffering or start complaining about the cuts that have to be made. I would also like to make a threat in a similar vein, that I will take down all of the names of those who oppose this motion, who back in October voted for a motion that condemned the Labour government for withdrawing the winter fuel allowance. Now, I was going to tell some jokes, you know, similar to Councillor James. I actually used ChatGPT to find some examples.
Councillor Lee,
yes,
you speak through me, not Councillor James.
I'm speaking through you to Councillor James. But Mr. Mayor, I searched for some jokes. It didn't come up with much. However, there were some examples of Lib Dems changing their minds. I mean, I think this mind change leaps back to as much as them changing their minds on the tuition fees back in 2010. You know, it reeks of stupidity, Mr. Mayor, that we can condemn a Labour government for removing the winter fuel allowance, but the moment we go to help those people by providing support, some backup, just as, you know, the winter fuel allowance does, we're going to vote against that, which to me means that you're using our residents' names in vain for political gain. And quite frankly, that is disgusting. So choose to vote against it tonight. Take my name down. I'll even take a picture with you, Gavin. Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, but let's make sure that your name is recorded as well for voting against this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Minas-Brown.
Mr. Mayor, this evening I have been invited, if there was ever a motion that voted against the National Labour government by Councillor Lee, I think this might just be it, frankly. It can only be the right thing to do to help the most needy and vulnerable in our borough. And this fund allocates enough money to help 1,500 of them. We know from only very recent reporting in national press that there's a backlog of assessments for pension credit assistance, which we tried so hard as the council and councillors to signpost our residents to. So, in my view, this is the right thing to do to support the most vulnerable with the funds that we are lucky enough to have. We can afford it, and sorry, Mr. Mayor, I thought I heard something. That it does also show, and I support the honesty of the Labour councillors, that they're prepared to accept that their national government has made a mistake, which I think many of us in this chamber do. It was ill thought out, badly implemented, and we should make sure locally for our residents, because we can, that we do the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cubitt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Gosh, I'm confused with all this intellectual incoherence. So, I would just like to say that the removal of the winter fuel allowance was not in the Labour Party manifesto. It has no legitimacy. It is very unpopular. It is very unfair. But it is not our role to stand in the place of national government and sort out a problem locally that nationally has been removed. So that is my first point. And that's my reference to the intellectual incoherency of the Labour Party tonight, because it's very strange for them not to support a policy that their government has instigated. It is also intellectually incoherent for the Conservative leader to say that he is going to support it, because he has just spent rather a lot of time telling us how inept and incompetent we are about a £44 million shortfall, which is going to ensue as a result of the local government reorganisation and the devolution which, by the way, was passed unanimously by the Conservative Hampshire County Council a couple of weeks ago. So we have, and moreover, the leader of the Conservative group also said that we didn't have any money, and he referred to page 51, where he said that we've run out of all resources. So he has now just said that we've got enough money to pay for this. So I am super confused. So on that basis, I'm afraid I can't support the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Gavin James.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Mayor, sorry, wrong council. This amendment carries the same weaknesses of previous schemes that we've done. I mean, first of all, Mr. Mayor, it's for 1 year. What are Cold residents going to do next year? It's 1 year only. It's poorly targeted. Pension credit for a couple brings you up to £17,000. So if you're, as a couple, getting pension credit and an income of £17,000, you can't access this proposed scheme because you're getting winter fuel allowance from the government. However, if you're a couple earning getting £24,000 and you've got £50,000 in ISAs in the bank, you can get access support. So it's not a progressive scheme. I understand the difficulty, but I think we all agree if the government could have done a means testing system to stop the millionaires getting winter fuel allowance whilst helping a lot more than they currently are, that would have been great. And the government didn't do it because it's very difficult. And you're not going to be able to create a means tested scheme in an amendment. We also know there's other welfare cuts coming. The government absolutely clear, sickness benefits on the radar, disability benefits are on the radar. So given this scheme, there is every chance that we will have people with disabilities, people with long-term illnesses, in greater poverty than some pensioners, They can't access the scheme, but pensioners can access the scheme. It doesn't seem particularly right. Also, we'd have to administer the scheme. And one of the problems we had with COLAF is it drained resource away from our benefits team within the council, because it's 1 year only. It's very hard to go and recruit someone with the expertise and knowledge for 1 year. So it wouldn't support as many as you think. It would go to the first 1,000, maybe 1,200. And will it go to the 1,200 most in need, or will it go to the 1,200 who get their claim in first? And the reality is it would often go to those who claim, will go to those who claim first that meet the criteria. The other thing, which I didn't want to mention when we were talking about COLAF in previous questions, council meetings, etc., is we can only carry out basic checks. You turn up with your bank statement, and it shows your income, and we can check that, because you have to bring it with you so we can confirm it. Can't check really what savings you've got. We can't really check if there's somebody else in the house with another income. It's actually quite open to abuse. And I have said several times, I want to make sure, as administration, I don't mind spending money, but I want to spend every penny well. Now, if we did subsequently find out that somebody had made a claim that they weren't entitled to, this isn't a benefit. So you can't use benefit fraud legislation. It wouldn't be a criminal offence. All we could do is take an old pensioner to civil court and spend thousands to get our £200 back. So it's very dangerous, these schemes. It is completely open to abuse, and it's not particularly safe. So I prefer the approach that we've adopted as administration, and that is the Green Team helping families, including pensioners, see if they can reduce the cost of heating their homes. That will cut CO2 emissions. It will also save money. That's help that will last every year, forever and ever. It won't just be a one-year wonder. Also, we will look at that. Our anti-poverty strategy will clearly identify the pensioner group, particularly around fuel, for support and help, and we'll look at how we can better help that community. Not just to keep them going for a year, but to get them out of poverty for life. This amendment, as well-intentioned, I totally accept it's well-intentioned, you're trying to take the worst off it, isn't the right one. And in relation to the motion, we moved back in November. Obviously, we wrote to the government minister, as requested in that motion. We wrote on the 19th of November. We got our reply on the 17th of February. Well done. That's a very fast response. And I would say, given the content of this letter, the person who wrote it would be absolutely against your amendment, because pensioners are going to be fine with all the things that he's listed that the government are doing to support them. So I won't be supporting your amendment, and I'm sure if Torsten Bell, the pensions minister, was here, he wouldn't support it either. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murrow.
Thank you. I think that I'm definitely not supporting this motion, looking at the motion, but also the fact that it seems to be a motion that's come about, supporting the amendment, but it seems to be an amendment that's has come about because of a motion that was quite a poor motion about national politics. We're here for the borough budget and we want to make amendments on that. We don't want to be reacting to national motions. That's what it is. So I think that if you're going to come up with an amendment, let's please look at our budget and make a proper amendment, not some reaction to a Conservative motion. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a motion moved a while back in this chamber on fuel poverty. It was a serious motion that had an awful lot of good in it that we as an authority need to take seriously and work through, of the things that we as a council can do to directly make an impact on residents who suffer from fuel poverty. That's where my attention is. That's where this council's attention should be, and not silly games over national politics, when actually in the first place I wouldn't have removed the winter fuel to start with. I just wouldn't have done it in the first place. But that's my view. The government decided to do it, and they have to bear with the consequences of that and their decision. But I wouldn't have done it in the first place. It's not for this council then to try to make up that particular issue when we can't affect as many residents as we would want to, when it's only for 1 year, and when the truth of the matter is the DWP don't share half the data we need to do it in the first place, when the truth of the matter is the CAB are already out there delivering advice to those residents to get as much out of the benefit system as they possibly can to make up for the cut to the winter fuel allowance in the first place. There really is a serious issue to deal with. when we talk about fuel poverty, because that's actually what we're talking about, or what we should be talking about, is around insulation of homes, or around what we do working with our RSL partners to invest their money in those homes to achieve better fuel efficiency for our residents. There is a conversation to be had around what this council can do with advice and support from our amazing benefits team to ensure, and they did it actually in terms of supporting those residents to claim the pensioner credit, to claim the support that they were entitled to, and to make sure that everybody gets what they're entitled to out of the benefits system. I think that's where this council's real focus can make a big difference to residents. And it's far more than 1,500. 1,500 doesn't cut it when you actually look at the number of people who are directly affected. So I'd quite like, perhaps in committee, a serious conversation about the work that is going on in this council so that we can say positively what our officers and the teams are achieving, where we could focus future effort with our partners to affect fuel poverty and put that as part of our anti-poverty strategy, where instead of simply giving people money to help them in the crisis they're in, we support them with a variety of means and tools to help them out of the poverty they are in. That is far more constructive, I think. And it is a shame, in a sense, the way the debate has gone, because I don't want silly politics. I want to do a job for our residents and help them out of the issues they genuinely have. As I said in my speech, I'm looking for solutions, not elastoplasts.
Thank you. Councillor Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to take this opportunity to reflect on some of the points made by my colleagues. I think the point about the sustainability of such a fund or a scheme, yes, agree. We at the council we can keep running this, but that was the same case for COLAF when it was introduced. This is about an interim support. This is about a very targeted approach. We have had discussion last time, and when we say means tested is important to save on the national level, obviously for the interest of the national budget, we've met with expressions around, well, there are people who will fall through the cracks. This is very much about this. This is about hearing of some of the concern and trying to act locally to work with you to help those who might be falling through the crack, that the system didn't manage to cover them during that transition. So this is, yes, I agree with you, this is about local, this is about our support here. And I think, and COLAF was supported by everyone back then, and it was run for a couple of years, as far as I remember. And again, when we are talking about local, we're talking about helping right here at home. And while some of the colleagues are referring to national politics or why this and why that, well, that wasn't the case last meeting when our colleague Gavin was stand up right here and he said, my group, my Lib Dem group, will be here for residents, those who's impacted, pensioner impacted, to help them in any way we can. This is one way you can help, Gavin. This is exactly it. This is very targeted, interim, and again, we've discussed it with the officers. You are concerned about the dangerous and how to run it, how to check the eligibility. Well, I trust our officers. I did a consultation with them and I spoke with them through this, and this is what we came about. This is a sort of the formula I think we can get us started to identify the exact group that will work. And I do trust them in the way they will manage this fund and the way they will deliver it to those who really need it and the exact targeted group. I'm just trying to keep national politics away and say, this is our opportunity again to just show that we can work on one issue together and keep politics aside. I am keeping politics aside by saying that. I am keeping politics aside and not trying to bang on why means testing is so important, the best way, this is how it is. No, I'm saying let's work together to get this interim support for some of the pensioners who might have been impacted by this. This will also inform us how many people have been impacted by this. So last time it was all about assumptions that we're all making. We don't have the numbers. We don't know how many people. This is about calling out to see how actually many people will be impacted by this. So I really urge you, and I know there is temptation here, the politics is running around, but I really urge you, just keep this aside for a second and just imagine someone that in their home, They just realized there is a little bit of money this year that's going to help them to be able to pay for this additional financial burden that has been impacted them. So just think about the individual and keep politics aside. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite the proposer?
No, Councillor West, does he
Oh,
want to speak?
I see. Oh, Councillor West. Right.
He was the seconder, so you need to
Oh,
check whether
yeah,
he wants
yes.
to speak.
Yeah, Councillor West, would you like to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for engaging on this debate. I think it's important. I think you clearly have all made that clear to us that it's important, and we've gone away as a group and tried to do what we can for residents in this town as a result. Just a couple of points of clarification on some things that people have said. Sorry to disappoint Councillor Minus Bound, but this is not a vote against the national government. The national government made fiscal decisions on a national level that they had to make when they inherited the worst fiscal inheritance any government has inherited in many, many years on taking government. Whether we agree or disagree with that decision in this chamber is not the point. The point is serving the residents here in this town, pensioners who may or may not need support, that we need to be there for if they do. To Councillor Gavin James, you made what I think was a plea to extend the scheme for many more years. You kept on telling us that it was only running for the one. I'm happy to look at that. I don't think it's fiscally going to work, but you let me know, and let's sit down and work that out. Last year, councillors from all parties spoke about pensions falling through the gaps. Well, here's our last chance to do something about it. Labour's amendment would create a fund specifically for low-income pensioners who don't qualify for other assistance in the very same way that we've supported people with the cost of living before. It's simple. If you meant what you said last year, vote for this amendment, put your money where your mouth is. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now invite the proposer, Councillor McCormick, to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, yes, COLAF. I remember moving that. It was a different council then. I wonder what's changed. The needs of residents are the same. They need help with their bills. I think it's a matter of interpretation whether you think this is a vote against the Labour government or not. I mean, there were reasons for stopping a universal benefit because that was benefiting people like Lord Sugar and very rich people who clearly didn't need it. And Lord Sugar said so himself in public on more than one occasion. It could well be that with a triple lock in time, pensioners won't need assistance. But the need is here now, and we've put a positive proposal on the table. So it is very disappointing to hear criticism bordering on abuse from the other side of the chamber, Mr. Mayor, about it being intellectually incoherent. When you insult people, you've lost the argument. Other councils have committed to support for their pensioners. The Scottish Government has, and they were backed by the Scottish Labour Party. Other councils in the past have done things to help, for instance, with the miners' strike, where we had northern councils putting on free school meals throughout the summer holidays to prevent kids from starving. It is within the gist of this council to do something about it. And that simply is the choice before you tonight. Do you want to help these people or not? It's within our gift to do it. We've costed it. We think it's doable. If you choose not to, then you have to live with the consequences of that political decision. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now take a vote on the amendment. Has everyone voted? If those who haven't voted, please.
No, the amendment's lost.
Right. So that's lost. Yeah.
Yeah. So next proposal.
Next proposer.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Parking charges. Everyone in this chamber, in one way or the other, they accepted one thing, which is cost of living. Everyone is going through for several reasons. I don't want to get well into the details. The other side of the chamber was telling about the footfall has increased. The figures that I have right now is not from myself. These are from the talkbasingstoketowncentre.co.uk website. It says Basingstoke's town centre, including the malls and festival place, has experienced a reduction in visitors, impacting local businesses. This is fact, not lie, right? Encouraging local businesses and what its impact is. Every £1 that we spend in our local business, it will generate 1.7 pounds for the local economy. These are not my words. These are Center for Local Economic Strategies document. And again, the retailers, W.S. Smith, probably it has been there for years. And as per the records, it has been there for 56 years. And it left. Why? Because of trading conditions and the lease, expiry of lease, and difficult circumstances. This is not myself. I didn't tell this one. This is the sun.co.uk website. So, other mentioning, every business that we lose is a loss of job. And another fact that I would like to mention is, if you look at our income source pie chart, the business income is going down, whereas the fees and charges income has gone up. If the co-leader can verify that one, what is in 24-25 budget and what is in 25-26 budget, it has definitely gone down. So these are the stats, Mr. Mayor. These are not lies. And today, as my colleague Councillor James said, people will watch you. And I leave it to the people to make the decisions. Thank you.
The seconder for this amendment. Yes. Yes.
I'll speak.
Councillor Dillo, would you like to speak now or would you reserve your right?
I'll speak later, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Konietzko.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So this amendment looks at two specific areas. One is the removal of the free 1 hour parking, and the second is around the increase in the cost of parking at the malls. And I'll address both of those in turn and explain the rationale for the decisions that the Cabinet has made. So the 1 hour free parking during the day is a bit more of a double-edged sword than the amendment would allow us to believe. So on the one hand, there's the argument that if you make parking free for an hour, more people will come to the town centre. And actually, it's not quite that clear-cut. But there's also the counter-argument, and that is that if you give people 1 hour free parking, they will try and cram in as much as they can into an hour. So they won't dwell, they won't browse, they won't go and sit down and have a coffee. They'll just zip from shop to shop to shop and get on with it as quickly as they can in order to get that hour free and make the most of that free hour. So to argue that removing the 1 hour free parking will necessarily be a bad thing for spend in the town centre doesn't necessarily ring true. There's also the important point that has been raised already this evening around the climate emergency that we've declared as a Borough Council. We should be encouraging people, certainly during the day, to use alternative means of transport, whether that's walking for those who can, cycling, or public transport. So free parking doesn't encourage that. So that's one point. I think it's, if you look at our proposals, what we are saying, we are removing this 1 hour free parking during the day, and instead we're looking at providing free parking overnight. That's not an idea that we came up with. It's something that came out of discussions that we had with the town centre traders. It's something they wanted to try, and we've decided to do it. We couldn't do both, so we've decided this year to go with the scheme of having free overnight parking. We're seeing that our town centre economy is moving, it's evolving. We've all seen the rise of internet shopping, and our town centre is responding by moving more towards leisure, to more experience activities. So we hope that this new initiative will help to promote those sorts of businesses and keep them going, keep them thriving in our town centre. I should also point out it's not the only new initiative that we've introduced from a parking perspective. We've also been listening to what commuters have been telling us. So in the Vine Meadow car park, for the first time, you'll see that we've introduced flexible season tickets for those people who only work in the office a few days a week. So it's another way to show that this council is listening, it is responding, and we're trying to come up with new ideas to stimulate our economy and stimulate our town centre. So that's the rationale behind the parking decision around the town centre. For the malls, I think it's fair to say that it's our most expensive car park, both in terms of the cost of parking, but also in terms of the cost of maintenance. And that's because it's not a surface level car park. And I think probably the best example to give you is if it rains on the surface car park, we get puddles, and that's annoying, but we can live with it. If it rains heavily in the mall's car park, we also get puddles, but those puddles happen to occur in Sainsbury's and in Primark, which is a big deal. So the maintenance costs for the mall's car park is much higher than everywhere else. This year, we're proposing spending over £300,000 on improvements to expansion joints to protect the surface, to make sure that some of these leaks stop. We're also going to have to spend a six-figure sum on the new parking machines. It's the only car park that we've got with the barrier controls on entry and exit, and replacing that costs a huge amount of money. So we've got some quite significant maintenance bills coming up, and that's why we're also increasing the cost to make sure that we cover those. And I should also point out that at every single price point on the mall's car park, we are still cheaper than Festival Place, and it still provides very good value for anybody coming to Basingstoke Town Centre.
Thank you. Councillor West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just first of all say that I think this administration has shown more ambition in the time it's been in administration than the entire time that the Conservatives ever were in administration for our town centre. That has been clear from the get-go, and something that I am glad to say that we continue to have a good working relationship on. The budget that was proposed is providing free parking for overnight in the top of town, which is something that businesses have been calling out for a long time, something that we know they're calling out for because we speak to them regularly. It's something they know they're calling out for because they speak to them regularly. What does that tell you about this motion? Including that overnight free parking is going to be the boost to the nighttime economy that we know can be there, because the Let's Go Glow event last week told us that. I was there walking around the top of town and saw a top of town that was booming, genuinely booming. Every single restaurant, every single bar, full. I've lived here my whole life. It warmed my heart, genuinely warmed my heart to see that. It gave me hope that we could see a top of town thriving again. And for that reason, I won't be able to vote for this motion, because I know where that investment really needs to go.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm just going to rise to say that I won't be supporting this motion, unfortunately. I agree with Councillor Konietzko that the only reason why I come into town during the day will be sort of one or two things that I can do within the hour, and then I don't spend a lot of other money during that time. What concerns me is, as somebody that has grown up in this town, who has spent more than enough money both in the nightclubs and bars of the town, and therefore enough money down the drains in this town, that the nightlife is, without fail, a dire situation, and therefore we need to encourage people to come into town and to spend their money. As an 18-year-old of my drinking persuasion, and have the visiting faraway resorts of Kosovo and coming back laden with money and spending it in the Lytton Tree back in the day, will certainly. It has closed, yeah. I'd say that the budget pressures and and cost of everything else under the Conservative government is probably more of a problem that businesses face. But I'm not trying to lean into that too much. I think, ultimately, we need to support the nighttime economy. I'm going into town this Friday with my wife. It's costing me the square root of car parking charges because I get my cinema ticket free because of my bank. My parents have paid for our meal, and yet I have to pay an extortionate amount to park my car, and I either have to face the choice of catching a taxi home and having a drink, or leaving the car here and paying an extortionate amount to park overnight and collect it in the morning, or not drinking. I know which option I'm going for, though. I'd still be spending my money down the drains. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, but I won't be supporting.
Councillor Gavin James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to repeat other people have made most of the points I was going to make, and I've been ticking them off. What I will say is when we first introduced the 1 hour free parking at the top of town centre, a lot of that was based on the fact that some people just wanted to go to the post office to pick up their pension, or they just wanted to go in and get a parcel, or nip to the bank and pay in a cheque. Obviously, those years are behind us. The cheques, some of the younger people won't even know what a cheque is. Some of the banks have gone and the post office has clearly moved. What I didn't realise is how much power we have as a council. So I'd like to thank Councillor Muman and Lenny. I didn't realise that simply by putting the Mals short stay parking up by 20 pence, we managed to shut 337 W.H. Smith's branches. Amazing.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I said in my speech that we were dealing with an awful lot of legacy issues about 20 months ago. And one of those was a serious lack of investment in the top of town. We were dealing with businesses that were desperate for a council that would listen to them, that would actually talk to them about the ambition and aspiration they had for the top of town. We also heard very, very strongly from our partners in Festival Place about their desires and aspirations and how they were constrained and how they wanted us to help them loosen those constraints to enable them to bring new shops and new investment into that amazing shopping centre, and how our shopping centre in the malls was actually one of the best in the region for being filled, with every single unit being used nearly, far more than many other places. So I really do not understand why the Conservatives continue to talk Basingstoke down. You've got no reality. It's an alternative universe you're living in. Go and talk to the business community like we are doing. When they told us of all the choices they could have had, they wanted us to take the nighttime car parking away. That was where the focus of our effort was requested. We've delivered on that. They also wanted us to do other things, like repaint the railings around the town centre that had been left for over a decade, that the county council couldn't be bothered to paint. Well, we did. And all of the other investments that cost, like cleaning the pavements, like reinvesting in shop fronts, like offering them the grants they needed to do the things they wanted to do to make their businesses successful. And that's actually attracted other businesses who are now contacting us to say, I like what you're doing, I'd like to invest in the top of town too. Can you point me in the direction of the landlords and those other owners of the shops and the various businesses in the top of town that need filling? We took the initiative to find the post office a new home when the national W.H. Smith's chain went under. I'm sorry, but that goes back to the national government, and it might go back a little bit further to a lettuce that caused an awful lot of trouble a couple of years ago. The truth of the matter is, over 100 investors sat in the Haymarket yesterday to talk about what this council is doing to attract investment into our town centre, to generate footfall, to increase it beyond what it already is, and talk to Festival Place, because the footfall is going up. You're wrong. The footfall is very strong. And they know that because of the sheer amount of investors they've had to come along to seek to buy them, to seek to buy Festival Place and take it on as a shopping centre for the success of actually putting more retail units in it, which was the conversation we've been having about the investment they want to deliver. I think there really is a really important message in all of this. You don't take £500,000 out of the baseline budget in the way that's being described from reserves and just expect that to be coped with. That results in cuts to services. It will result in employees being made redundant. And that's not scaremongering. That's the reality of taking £500,000 out of the budget over the MTFS. And yet, only a few speeches ago, we were being told how utterly fiscally irresponsible we were. Well, I'm sorry, but that is fiscal irresponsibility. We have got big choices coming. So the choices we make now, in terms of the investments we make in the top of town and in our local businesses, are important. Where we put our money is important. Where we get it from is important. I think it's right to ask people to pay for car parking if they get the services out of it, which becomes restaurants, shops, leisure, community uses, and all of the other things that make our town centre a real hub of activity, And that's what we're driving for. So I'm really sorry, but the alternative universe that's going on over there bears no resemblance to the conversation I was having with the Chamber of Commerce yesterday, who were saying, thank you for what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing. We are behind you 100% in what you are doing. And they know what this budget means, because they're endorsing what this budget will make a difference to those businesses.
Thank you. Councillor Mines-Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make sure we've all read the same amendments to the other side. I don't think the amendment talks about not supporting the free nighttime car parking. It just talks about keeping the 1 hour in the yards in the top of town. And to agree for a brief moment with Councillor Gavin James, the reason why the 1 hour was kept was listening to the businesses at the top of town, but also listening to residents. And residents who use the 1 hour free come to the town to do essential things. It may not be the post office at the top of town anymore, but it certainly is banking. It certainly is to go to the supermarkets, and it is certainly to come to the market on Wednesdays and Saturdays to get their fresh fruit and their vegetables that perhaps they can't get at other larger national retail supermarkets. Councillor Hubbard, I'm a bit confused. You said you didn't operate in national politics, but you seem to have gone into lettuce politics. Just an observation. So, Mr. Mayor, I will be supporting this, because what I also do is not only listen to the businesses at the top of town, but also listen to our residents. And I'm conscious that we've got a representative from the Gazette here, and if I thought about the Gazette website and the Gazette feedback, they absolutely, and I would use one of them to summarise this suggestion of getting rid of it as madness. That's what our residents think about this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dillo. No? Oh, Councillor Cubitt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that I won't be supporting this amendment. And in fact, I've just asked artificial intelligence about the footfall, and I'm being told very clearly that it is rising, and it's over 23 million in 2024 compared to 22 million before the pandemic. So it dipped during the pandemic, and it's gone up by over 1 million last year. So that's just a factual kind of update. And secondly, I just wanted to say how proud I am of this administration and the officers and all the work that we've done in relation to the communications and the talks and the meetings and the forums and everything that we're doing in the top of town, because it's being very well received. I'm getting so many comments from residents saying how much they appreciate and are enjoying the experience of going to the top of town now. And there's a real vibrancy and a real excitement up there with the new shops that we've got, the new vegetable shop down Woke Street, the new supermarkets which we've got, which are wonderful. So I would just like to say that I think there's a lot to be excited about. There's a lot more that's going to come down the track this year and next year that is going to be amazing. And on that basis, I'm not going to be supporting this amendment. Thank you very much.
Now, Councillor Dillo, your turn to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I would like to say that obviously I support the free parking for the nighttime community. That goes without saying. But our town centre is at a crossroads. Nationally, we have seen more and more businesses struggle under the weight of rising costs, reduced footfall, and growing competition from online retailers.
If we do nothing, we risk watching our high street decline, leading to closures, lost jobs, and a weaker local economy. So this proposal is simple, cost-effective way to take immediate action by maintaining the 1 hour of free parking in our closest town centre car parks and freezing short stay fees in the malls, multi-storey car park. We can encourage more visitors to shop locally and support our retailers when they need it most. We cannot ignore the national warning signs. The recent closures of businesses in town centres across the country are not just numbers. They represent livelihoods lost and communities weakened. Every measure that makes it easier and more affordable for people to visit our town centre is a step towards ensuring that our town centre maintains its vibrancy. Now, retailers are already struggling with increased operational costs, including Labour's recent rise in employer national insurance contributions. By keeping parking costs stable, we send a clear message. We support our local businesses, we value our high street, and we are willing to act now to protect them. The financial impact of this amendment is modest, but the potential benefits to our economy and community are significant. We must invest in the future of our town centre, and this proposal is a responsible and targeted way to do so. So I urge you all to support it, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Muma Laneni, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, in summary, definitely this motion is not about nighttime free. We would like to, we want to support that one. There is no doubt about it. And we are asking why you are taking away that 1 hour free parking one. It is giving in right hand and taking from the left hand, right? Yes, the council has done a consultation about it. And if you look at this one, Mr. Mayor, the questions are carefully chosen. They introduced a question in that one saying, would you like to have a free car park during the night period? People all obviously say yes. But did they mention, is it at the cost of 1 hour free charging, which is in free car parking in the daytime? They didn't mention it. They purposefully hidden this one, right? And again, my colleagues in the Councillor West mentioned about the relationship. Yes, that relationship is apparent today in the chamber. And I would like to take recorded voting on this. And we would like to take the recorded voting to the people. Thank you.
We're going to move to the vote on the amendment. Has everyone voted? Your last chance. Amendment is lost. May I invite Mr. Swain to give us about the amendment if we take it. So what will be the cost?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The overall impact is £40,000 increase in the deficit in the last year, which would take that to 2.90 million for 28 to 29 in Table 9 as the required future savings as set out in the amendment paper, as the others have not passed.
So now I will open the debate for the substantive motion as amended. Mumaleni. Right, Councillor Mumaleni.
Mr. Mayor, a couple of questions here, Mr. Mayor, about table number 7 in our document. Table number 51, 14, table number 7. Can the officer clarify about the national insurance compensation, which the socialist partners mentioned initially, has gone down to support or a partial compensation figure, which is mentioned in the MTFS as every year from now to 28-29. Are we sure, sir? The reason why I ask this question is, in the Hampshire County Council, that is only given for 1 year, and for Basingstoke Council, the government is giving for 4 years, and I'm confused here.
Councillor Mumaleni.
Councillor James will respond at the end when he sums up at the end. It's not for him to question on.
Yeah, okay. So who is the next to speak?
You just need to explain that Councillor James will respond when he sums up.
Councillor James will respond to your questions that you have raised when he comes out. When it comes up. Any other speakers? No. So, Councillor James.
Yes, thank you. I'll answer that question first. The reason, if you look in table 7, you'll see that the employer national insurance changes cost £700,000. Obviously, we're getting compensation of £320,000, and that's going to keep repeating itself every year, and that's what we've showed in this document. You might see towards the bottom, we're using MTFS risk reserves to support with that for the first 2 years. For the rest of it, we've got to find that elsewhere in the budget, but because we'll have to make it balance somehow. Now, the reason, I don't know why Hampshire have done it differently. One suspects Hampshire didn't want to put anything particularly expensive in their budget if they could possibly avoid it, because they are that close. The 114 notice is written, it's in the envelope, and as soon as they can afford the stamp, they will be sending it. So I suspect that's why they've tried to hide that away. Other than that, I really have nothing to say. It's been an interesting debate. Disappointed, obviously, we can't always support the amendments. What I will say is most of the amendments, a lot of reference was made to, but the ballot, we can afford it, we can afford it, we can afford it. Because what we've done is each amendment was adding to what we took out the risk reserves and leaving the problem till 2028. And at some point, it will be 2028. So we would have made the problem bigger. So we are effectively, by adding those, we'll be running an in-year deficit every year, but it's just moved to there, which I will say, because again, it was mentioned, local government reorganisation and how we're dealing with that and how we're preparing for that. I think what's really important is to recognise is that whether Basingstoke and Dean is here in 2028-29, Basingstoke will be, and that the fantastic towns and villages around us will be, and our residents will be, and they'll still depend on their services. So part of this budget and how we treat money ongoing is recognising that we are just here temporarily. We're just the guardians of the taxpayers' money, and the council may go, but they won't, and we must make sure that we make the right and appropriate decisions to make sure that whatever successful authority, which some of us will probably want to be in, is in the best possible position to take over the mantle of delivering those key services. So we won't be taking any silly risks or doing any nonsense between now and then. We'll govern responsibly, as we always have done and always will do. The other thing I'll say is you're only ever a scandal, resigned minister, away from the whole thing being pushed into the long grass. We don't want to set up a problem that we still yet might have, as a council, have to solve. It wouldn't be the first time that local government will be pushed back. So hopefully we can now get on and support and never mention the budget until next year.
We will now take a recorded vote using the electronic voting system. The vote is open now. Has everyone voted? Okay. Okay, the vote is closed. Motion is carried. Motion is carried, okay? This one will be capital program update and strategy report for 2024-25 to 2028-29. 5 minutes per speaker. The cabinet member for, sorry? Yeah. So Councillor James, would you propose?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to propose this capital programme, the updated capital programme for the next 4 years. You'll notice there's £22 million worth of additions to the capital programme. Most of them relate to the rolling programme every year. The thing moves on a year. Our council vehicles only ever last 6 years, generally speaking, so they'll need to be replaced. IT gets replaced, so there's a rolling programme of capital expenditure that we have to incorporate. In addition, there is a further payment towards the replacement of the aquadrome and more improvements in the leisure park, which is a bit, again, we'll have more information about that when the D-bomb arrives and the bid arrives for that. So that's been added to the programme. There's also £1 million being included in the programme for the re-provision of golf. Obviously, that expenditure is subject to whether or not Great Wharf get planning consent and complete that deal. But if we do need to re-provide golf, we put the money into the capital programme to fund that. There are, as usual, a number of slippages. Within that, I say we're forever going back into it and asking new capital bids to be realistic about the time frame, so we don't have this problem in future. The other big change within the capital programme, well, there's a minor change which is important I mentioned because it's we need to change the name of the wastes on the papers. The waste vehicle replacement to the waste contract change or something. It's a minor tweak to give the officers more flexibility when negotiating and finalising that contract. There are two substantial changes within it which are called savings. They're not really savings, but accountants have a very limited vocabulary. They're basically sort of transfers out because it's money that we weren't going to spend that came in because we might be spending it that we're now not going to spend and transferred out. If it comes up as a question, I'm more than happy to explain the many down loans and how that's working, how we ended up we are. But that money's come in, it's going back out back into Treasury, and also around the property investment strategy, recognising the list of properties we're disposing of, we're not going to get £10 million of income, which means we're probably not going to need £10 million to spend. We won't have £10 million to spend. So although it shows us £35 million worth of savings, actually they're not exactly savings. It's money that didn't really exist. Hope that helps, and hope you can support the capital programme.
You have a seconder? No? Well, Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak now, or is that
I'll wait, thank you.
Councillor Isaac.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. What the report reveals is a worrying drift on many key projects for our borough. When the Indie-Lib administration won control in May 2023, they told us that it would all be different if they were in charge, and important projects like the redevelopment of the town centre, the leisure park, Basingview and many down would be propelled forward now that they were under their dynamic leadership. Instead, I'm sorry, but it has to be said that the progress after nearly 2 years of this administration appears disappointingly meagre. Capital spend is being pushed out year on year, over £7 million in this budget overall. Major projects are stalling, with capital expenditure being pushed out to later years. Even modest preliminary work is being delayed, 341,000 on the leisure park delivery delayed from 24 to 25, and now £339,000 moved out from 25 to 26. It seems that everything has taken a back seat to work on the aquadrome. Very little has happened on all the plans Conservatives have approved as long ago as early 2023 for new, exciting entertainment attractions across our leisure park. In early 2023, we were about to go out to market to a selected list of private sector operators to bid for sites. But since then, it seems to have been all about internal reviews, so that not even money allocated to the capital programme to do preliminary work on surveys, on an outline planning application or proposals for the public realm and infrastructure is being spent. Sadly, this is not an isolated instance. This report wearily spotlights the difficulties in reviving our town centre. Progress seems to be no better than painting railings, jet washing pavements, shop front grants and outdoor seating, as confirmed by Councillor Harvey this evening. Oh, and the architects have apparently reacquainted the Cabinet with the master plan approved by Conservatives in 2022. And on the really transformational stuff, such as redevelopment of sites for housing and other attractive uses to breathe new life into the town centre as envisaged by our master plan, the message in this report is all about constraints and the mix of land ownerships. I know from experience that these developments are complex and take time, but we don't seem to be getting off first base these days. Council has voted money to refurbish the Anvil, including the leaking roof. But again, as the years pass by, it is the same story of funds being pushed back year on year. Basingview seems to have gone to sleep. After steady progress under Conservatives, with new developments such as the Florence Building, the Eli Lilly HQ, Village Hotel, and most recently the Plant Office Building, all this report can muster is to say, quote, as a freeholder, the Council is playing a key role in helping promote and stimulate new investment and is committed to investing in the long-term success of Basingview, end quote. No achievements to shout about then. What is going on? These hold-ups are even more problematic in 2025. Why? Because with local government reorganisation on the horizon, and as Basingstoke Council, we are currently in full control of our own funds and can make decisions, it is essential that these improvements are driven forward for the good of our residents and our local businesses. Thank you.
Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been on this council a few years, and the delays in this phasing of this capital budget is no different to what it has been in the previous years. So I think it's misguided attacks there. So I support the administration's managing of the capital budget. There's some exciting projects coming forward. Next year we have Basingview and we have May Place and we have the leisure park. So we're nearly £15 million going to the leisure park from Sill. So Sill is very important, and in South Ham we could be having some redevelopment at the Camrose and Great Wolf. So we would like some of that Sill money to be earmarked for regeneration in South Ham. I noticed parish neighbourhood plans, if they got adopted, they get 20%. So we would like to flag up potential regeneration money for South Ham. I know Sovereign are working, consulting the residents of South Ham and Buckskin, and they're looking forward to their plans at the end of the year. I think it's very important that the council identifies a capital sum to facilitate or work with Sovereign or SNG, whatever SNG now, isn't it? The council has done valid support over the last few years in South Ham. As we all know, Westside Community Centre closed 18 months ago and had to move to Buckskin, the Ridgeway Centre, and the council supported revenue to keep the services running, which is very, very good and very welcomed by the community. And also now the beacon closed about a year ago now, and the council's now bought back the lease from Green King, and it's now putting that out to Sovereign, and a part of the community services are now moving back to South Ham. But that isn't going to take up the whole floor space which was lost from West Side. And when we talk to Sovereign, S&G, their plans are all very vague. End of the year, we might get something. We don't know where the new community centre is going to get. So I would like to see some capital money for regeneration. If we need a community centre in South Ham, that we would have that money available in the future. So that's just flagging up. Nothing in concrete now. Obviously, negotiations still ongoing with Sovereign. I'd just like to flag that now to the administration. Thank you.
Councillor West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't necessarily going to speak on this, but I've been moved to by the words of Councillor Isaac, and that is unfortunately not a compliment. Years and years and years and years and years of waiting for many down, and over the last couple of years we've seen more progress than ever. Years of waiting for the Conservative Council to really do anything at all on redeveloping the urban parts of our town, and we've seen huge swathes of change over the last couple of years as a result. You mentioned Basingview. I work there a few days a week, and it's very clear that the council has been doing work with partners there, that there is investment happening there, that Mountbatten Place, currently the plant, is moved in there, it's been rebranded, and that stuff's happening, and you can take credit for it all you like, but as you know, the administration has to deliver that work now. And if you're going to talk about Basingview and claim the credit for it, then be ready to support them in the work they're doing now. The redevelopment of Winklebury, whilst not necessarily delivered in the way that we would have hoped in parts of Winklebury, and we're working very closely with Vivid to make sure that regeneration improves and that we can get the right thing that we need from them. But Many Down has been something that's been, for my ward, for the people in that ward, a kind of sore, constantly point, and we're now getting to the place where we can see action happening. And for people who live in Winklebury as a largely a place that is somewhat deprived and quite a lot of poverty, we know that those families need the housing that many Down developments are going to bring. So thank you to the administration for that, and Councillor Isaac, I think it's laughable that you would talk about progress in the Conservative Party.
Councillor Harvey.
Harvey was
Yeah, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said, short memories earlier. Already mentioned the Many Down point, but I'm going to mention three other little words. New River Retail. I might mention other words, Muse Developments. I might mention other words, losing Debenhams. There is a history, good and bad, actually. There's a history of good work that was done that brought Many Down as far as it came, that we took on as an administration to deliver last month, in 20 months of being in administration. I think that's credit to those who took it as far as they did, Councillor Isaac, and then credit to the administration for delivering it this year at the pace we are trying. Actually, let's talk sensibly. I think the amount of times this council has master plans, strategies that sit on the shelf gathering dust, as opposed to trying to get on with the delivery of it, which is always the most difficult bit, is a lesson to be learned. And in all honesty, I go back 25 years to when Festival Place was built, and the effort that went into bringing Grosvenor to Basingstoke to invest 300 million in our town centre, and the work going on now to bring major institutional national investors to Basingstoke to transform our town centre, and the progress we are making because of the interest we are genuinely generating. Not a master plan, simply, but genuinely going out and saying, come to Basingstoke and spend your money investing in our town centre to transform it for the residents, as we've already been alluded to tonight, should be our focus. There are many other investments going on. I can't think of many councils around the country that are talking about investing in brand new play areas, putting capital monies directly into brand new play areas in our borough, because many other councils are actually closing them or taking equipment away. Oh, and by the way, we have a separate budget to do the maintenance of our play areas that we never had before. So we're maintaining the play areas and we're making new play areas, and we're doing more a year than ever before. That's proper capital investment that works well. There's also an awful lot of Section 106 capital investment that needs to be fulfilled. It's not always easy because the developers and the relationships and the drawdown of the money and then the delivery of the projects is complex. But a lot of the slippage relates to Section 106. And that's something we've all had to work on. We've had working parties on it in the past in terms of how to turn it round. I would also say that regeneration is a word we throw around the chamber. And I completely hear where Gary's coming from, because my community's been through regeneration over 20 years ago, and I can't think of a regeneration on the scale of Oak Ridge and Popley that we've done in the past 17 years, because it never happened. We're now talking about Southam and Buckskin in the same way. We're talking about a programme of regeneration from Sovereign Network Group with their partners Hill, that if they get it right, and we want them to, and we'll hold their feet to the fire, we'll regenerate Southam and Buckskin. So there is massive capital projects being talked about, really significant investment, and the proof is in the pudding, because the proof is the number of people who are knocking our door down saying they want to come to Basingstoke to invest with us, and how our capital programme can support them in doing that. And that's our focus, is what we can do with our capital programme to achieve those major investments that will make a difference to our communities, but leverage the extra that comes in from outside. So I'm sorry, I just don't see the picture again. It's the other alternative universe again. Let's concentrate on the job in hand, which is deliver the capital programme we are, and the massive difference we're making to our residents.
Councillor James, to sum up, please.
Yes, thank you, and it's good to hear that conversation. Always always good to get advice around progressing schemes from the former cabinet member for Manydown. He will notice there are a few things different. When he had the capital programme, we used to see £2 million a year being put into the aquadrome to hold it together. We're not doing that. We're replacing it, saving money in the long run and delivering a better service to our residents. So there is progress being made. Some of the schemes that aren't progressing, the View 5G Living Lab, he'll remember that sat on his capital programme for many years with nowhere to go. And so it's literally sat on here. I'd be pleased to know it now has a location that's been secured, and it's just sorting out some energy supplies to go into that to support it. So we are making progress on that one. Obviously, some of the things around the leisure park, which we're not doing, is a lot of that money was put into the capital programme for signage and for street improvements in the public realm, as he mentions. It's very pointless putting in a street sign saying swimming pool that way if you're just about to build a new one the other way. So we're saving money and being more efficient with it. It's something we do. You could learn from us. So there you go. So hopefully you can all support the capital programme. It frustrates me as well. We're not making some good progress, but there's good stuff in there. And of course it is all funded. We're not borrowing to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are the recommendations agreed? Agreed. 10. Item number 10. Camrose disposal of council-owned land and removal from list of assets of the community value. 5 minutes per speaker. So this one is Cabinet Member for Finance and Property will propose. Councillor Gavin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Yes, very simple paper. Given we've got a motion coming up, I'm guessing we can probably get rid of this pretty quickly because the motion pretty much has is obviously on a very similar topic. Obviously, the decision was made by Cabinet to sell the land to deliver more affordable housing. The decision here is just to make sure that the council approves that when that is a capital receipt at the point of sale, that capital receipt will go into ring-fenced for a football facility improvement works in Basingstoke. I think the motion will then go on to tighten this up later on. But if we can agree this now, and then the motion will effectively act as an amendment to it, is my understanding. If that's right, I look to my getting frowny eyes. But,
okay, do we have a seconder? Yes. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Lee. Oh yeah, Councillor Harvey.
Reserved by right to speak. Reserved by right.
Right. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The disposal of this land presents us with an opportunity to address a pressing need in our borough, the shortage of affordable, genuinely affordable social rent homes. We all recognise that too many residents are currently on waiting lists, struggling to find secure and suitable housing. By selling the council share of the site to S&G, we can facilitate the delivery of more social rent homes on this land, an outcome that directly benefits those most in need. However, I want to be clear that supporting this proposal should not give S&G a blank cheque. It's essential that mechanisms be built into the sale agreement to ensure that S&G remains accountable for delivering exactly what they have promised. And I'm sure that the administration will make best endeavours to do so. But what does this mean? To me, this means that there should be no altering of tenancy types, no reducing the number of social rent units on the land, and certainly no lowering the overall build or environmental standards simply because they are designated for social rent. The dignity and well-being of both current and future residents depend on these homes being built to the same high standard as the rest of the development. I also want to address the aspect of this proposal related to football. As Councillor James mentioned, we will be speaking on that in the motion section of the agenda. And I obviously support that the money is being designated for football facility improvements. But there is a real opportunity to do more with those funds, particularly given the broader context of this sale and the significance of the Camrose site. Let's not forget that this portion of land was left vacant and on its own is too small to offer a viable football solution. Selling it to S&G, who have control of the wider site and a solid plan in place for affordable housing, not only brings certainty for local residents who have waited years to see progress, but also aligns with the wider strategic goals of the Council. Make no mistake, this is a critical moment. By approving this sale under the right conditions, we can ensure that much needed social rent homes come to fruition in a timely and accountable manner. At the same time, we can also direct a portion of the proceeds to support improvements in local football facilities, a win-win scenario for both housing and sports in our community. But we must ensure that the legal and contractual safeguards are robust enough to hold S&G and this Council to our commitments. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey. No, you got your lights on, Councillor James. Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a sad day really for Basingstoke. Indeed, the football club will be gone at the Camrose in a couple of years' time. I mean, I've been in Basingstoke 50 years and I spent all my youth drinking down the Camrose, not my youth, when my adult drinking down the Camrose Social Club, and yeah, and it's gone, and the football club's going to be gone, and I think it's a sad indictment of all councillors in this chamber actually that there wasn't a fight put up to get back the Camrose, and as Mr. Graham stated earlier, nothing in this council has actually been debated on the football club. We've had the odd motion here and there, but we've never had substantial motion saying we should purchase over the common like 10 years ago, which we should have done as a council, which we bottled it, or we should actually buy the Camrose back and how much it would actually cost. But we actually haven't done it because there hasn't been the political will there. If there's the political will, things get done, like at the golf reprovision. I mean, we find land for that because there's big money involved. So we do it because it's sinister of me because there's money involved. But if there's a political will, you could actually do it. So yeah, I'm disappointed that it's coming to the end of an era. A couple of things in the paper. It talks about open market value. So why is this figure substantially lower than it was 10 years ago? 10 years ago, it was being sold for 800,000, and now it's 50% below that. So that doesn't stack up to me. And I've also gone back to S&G, specifically asking the percentages of social housing, and they could not give me any percentage at all. And they said it would all come out in the planning application, but this paper saying it's going to be social housing, and Sovereign actually haven't committed to any social housing. So I think there's a few anomalies that need sorting out there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of points just to pick up on Councillor Watts for reassurance. Firstly, our aim and our focus working with SNG is socially rented housing. Secondly, absolutely clearly, the processes have been followed thoroughly by our officer team and legal advice and support for the value to be achieved on the site, and that is a matter that's clearly set out in the report. Secondly, I think in terms of the actual overall position, yes, the history of the Camrose has been incredibly painful for many in our football community, but Basingstoke Town Community Football Club are doing an amazing job of resurrecting, I think, the positive change that the football community can see with all that they do, from their youth teams to the women's team to all of it, and that will come in a debate later. This motion is about this particular decision relating to the Camrose Stadium and the land that we own as a council, specifically the strip of land, and that the proceeds from it will be used to support football in Basingstoke. And that's the heart of what this recommendation is in this paper. There is an awful lot that surrounds it. There is an awful lot that we can talk about around it. But I draw you back to the decision we're making. And I would also make a point that I really do welcome the support from colleagues, because behind the scenes, given the conversations we've been having with the football club, the work that's going on by our officer teams over a long time now to support them really does show the commitment of our administration to sport and particularly to football. And I just want to acknowledge that, the absolute work that's been going on, that's leading to where we can make the decision that is behind this decision. And I thank you for agreeing with the direction of travel that we are going in on this.
Councillor James, to sum up, please.
I don't think you need to sum up.
We are moving to a vote. Electronic voting, please. No? Is that agreed? Sorry, it's my mistake. Is that agreed?
Not by one person.
Okay. Vote carrying. 34, 36, 37.
They need to vote.
Yeah. Everybody has to vote electronically as it started, so that's it. 39. Yeah? Has anyone who has not voted?
Motion is agreed.
So motion is agreed. So 9:30 is coming and we have to waive standing order. Is that going to be agreed? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to Treasury Management Strategy. I will move this from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Would you like to speak? No.
Ask if anyone else wants to speak.
Anybody else want to speak? Is that agreed? Agreed. 2025-26. Agreed? Good. So
hold on a second. You do actually need to propose it and second it first.
Okay. Okay. Yes, just a minute. So Councillor James, would you introduce the report first?
No, just propose it. Just propose it.
Yeah? You're proposing it.
Here we go.
Second it,
Is it
yeah.
agreed?
Is that agreed? Now we come to the notice of motions. That will be 5 minutes per proposer, 5 minutes seconder, 20 minutes debate with 5 minutes for each speaker, 5 minutes for sum up. So Councillor Lee, would you please propose your motion? You have 5 minutes.
Mr. Mayor, before we start, I believe I did pass round to yourself and obviously the leader of the council. There's an altered version which will be passed around the chamber. Now it still keeps the same context, the same sentiment in it as per the Constitution. But thank you, Mr. Mayor. The demise of the Camrose as a dedicated football ground wasn't just the loss of a pitch. It was the loss of a space where generations found common ground and community spirit. Whilst we cannot turn back the clock, we can guide our future decisions to ensure that Basingstoke remains a place where football can thrive. Now, we are all aware of the history of this saga. The Camrose land was specifically intended for football and sports use for decades to come. The loss and subsequent sale have curtailed that vision. But this motion before us provides an opportunity to keep football at the heart of our borough. Not simply because it's a nice to have, but because football, like other sports, promotes physical health, social cohesion and local economic benefit. A vibrant football club acts as a beacon for our young people, offering them constructive pathways, teaching teamwork and forging friendships. Some of you may be thinking, yes, but this council can't write a blank cheque, and you'd be correct. However, what we can do is show meaningful support by using the proceeds from the Camrose land sale and any applicable Section 106 or SIL contributions to put back into the fabric of our local game. Now, Section 16 of the Local Government Act 2003 clearly empowers us to use capital receipts to support future capital projects, precisely the kind of support a new or improved stadium would require. This motion isn't asking for unlimited funding. It recommends a reasonable beginning, which can be enhanced through grants, partnerships and other investment options. Let's also address one concern up front. Some of you might worry that this only benefits one club. In reality, ensuring Basingstoke Town Community Football Club has a permanent, fit-for-purpose home benefits the entire grassroots ecosystem. Fewer clubs competing for the same 3G pitch, more space for training, and a knock-on effect of boosting participation in all age groups and across different sexes. This is how we build a lasting legacy, by creating a facility that can serve multiple teams and uses, while also acting as a focal point for community pride. We have the chance, Mr. Mayor, to reimagine what a local football ground means in a modern era. With the right guidance, transparency and community engagement, we can ensure that the next generation grows up with the opportunity to hone their talents on their own home turf that provides growth options for the future. This means regular updates on progress, collaboration with organisations like the Hampshire FA and Sport England, and above all, working closely with the club itself. Members, as I said in the debate in the previous item, the sale of the land and the allocation to football facilities is welcomed, but we can and should do so much more. Let us seize this moment to ensure that future players, coaches and fans have somewhere to call their own. A stadium that represents not just a place to play football, but also a commitment to our town's well-being and unity. By voting yes, we endorse a brighter, stronger future for Basingstoke on and off the pitch. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor West, do you wish to second this and speak now, or do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
He's reserved his right. Okay, he has. Thank you. No, we will now move to debate. Who wishes to speak? Is that Councillor Minnesbaum?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I think it was Councillor Watt said earlier, this represents a very sad day for our town. I'll be voting in favour of this motion to invest the proceeds from this forced sale of part of the football club in supporting its previous tenants, Basingstoke Town Community Football Club, fundamentally because it's the right thing to do. The current new community club has been at the heart of our community for years, providing opportunities for players, supporters, future generations, the wider landscape in football, as we've heard. fundamentally, we should also remember that they were forced out of their home. And now we have a chance to ensure they have the support they deserve to rebuild and thrive for the future. Investing these proceeds back into the club and its future home is not just about football, it's about standing up for our community and honouring our commitments. When I first was involved with the football club, which I think was in 2017, and I was asked to intervene in some conversations between the football club and Hants FA and to help, what became evidently clear was that as a council, we were not to blame, and that's not always been presented out in the public arena. So let's be clear, Mr. Mayor, why we're even considering this in front of us. The town has been let down, but not by the current administration, not by previous administrations, but actually fundamentally three lots of people. The trustees of the Lord Camrose estate for even considering selling the freehold. For those people who bought the freehold, making the covenant null and void, and more importantly, a body which we would ordinarily rely on as a statutory body ourselves as a local planning authority. We literally had our hands tied behind our back as soon as Sport England came up with the response that they did, which did not allow for reprovision or enough money for reprovision. And that I find as a public servant particularly difficult and let us all down in the town, let the football club down and let their fans down. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gavin James.
Thank you. I agree much of what Councillor Sanders has just said. I'm not sure this is the sad day. I'm not sure whether the sad day was in 2001 when the club was in financial trouble and turned to Rafi Razak to take it over and effectively become the owner of the club and any associated covenants. I'm not sure the sad day was 2007 when the trustees of the Camrose estate chose to sell an option to Rafi Razak, giving him the right to purchase the land. Or the decision in 2016, deal was finalised in January 2017, to acquire the land and put it in his name, so he owned both the club and he owned the land. All of those days were sad days in many respects. This has been a kind of relief day, a goodbye day, a recognition that despite the efforts and energies of many people, that the Camrose is just simply not an option. What I will say to be reassuring, because it was mentioned earlier by someone in the chamber, it's not like no one's done anything. We did look at, as Councillor Morrow mentioned, the answer to the question from Drummy. We did look at the leisure park. We got presented the business plan. We recognised the club would need to raise £6 million to build if we gave them the land. That would leave them with some sort of, and I don't think anyone would have lent them that much money, the amount of interest they'd have to pay to service that loan would have made them bankrupt in about 12 minutes, certainly way before half time. To be honest, the other option we did look at was whether or not the council could build a stadium and rent it out to the club and other users, but that left the club sharing a stadium which didn't suit their needs, and the money didn't stack up. We'd be left with a liability and cost of the council every year forever and have to cut other vital services, so that didn't work. We did, through agents, make some inquiries about the availability of the Camrose land, whether or not Basron might be willing to cut their losses and sell it off cheap to get out of the heat. There was no deal to be done there, and what I will say is once we look at the state of the dilapidation of the construction on the Camrose site, it was very clear most of it would need to be demolished. You'd have to rebuild the entire stadium anyway. Again, the council couldn't use taxpayers' funds to do that. The club would have had to make some contribution. That contribution would have made them bankrupt. So we've been through quite a lot in 18 months, and I'm sure the previous administration looked at some of those things or similar things themselves to get to where we are. We are now making progress and hopeful of getting somewhere in the future. Obviously, we can't say too much because we're still working on various things, but we have got hopes of getting in the future. So I support this motion. It's absolutely our intention to make sure that the proceeds do go towards enabling the club to secure a home of their own in the long term. Clearly, this isn't going to be enough to do it all on its own, but it's certainly going to take us a step forward. The rest of it, if you imagine if you wanted to buy a piece of land and build a football stadium on it for the size and to the criteria they need, it would cost you about £18 million. So this will probably not close the entire £18 million gap, but we've got other ideas around that are massively shrinking that gap. So I will be supporting this motion because it will hold our feet to the fire to make sure that we keep working as hard as we have been and continue to work to deliver a home the club can call their own.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope that the football fans and the football club can find positive, good feeling coming out of this council chamber towards them and their aspirations with this motion, let alone where we might get to in the future, because my goodness me, has it been a rough ride to get here thus far. I said a moment ago that the history of the Camrose is painful for many football fans in the community, and I think we need to recognise that. But this motion is really well intended. It endorses the strategy, the direction of travel that we're seeking to go in. It's full of points I can happily sign up to. I think the important point here is that we are in discussions with the football club moving forward positively, but also we are focused on football in Basingstoke and Dean. Football isn't just Basingstoke Town Community Football Club, as critical and important as that is. There is a really important recognition that football across Basingstoke and Dean needs to be supported, and we do that as well. We recognise that as well. However, we recognise how the importance that BTCFC has, I think, in their wider aspirations, but they need to be sustainable aspirations, and that's where we're working with them. I'd like to thank the club for their approach to our conversations over many months now. For most of the time we've been in administration, actually, before that, and say that we share their ambitions. They've got a real vision of where they want to be, and I think this is an important point. The fact that it is a community club, fan-led and run, makes a huge difference. It is totally different to the things that have already been said this evening about the way others have chosen to run Basingstoke Town Football Club, in contrast to Basingstoke Town Community Football Club. And I really do celebrate the volunteers and those who are committed to making a success. So I'm going to support the motion in the spirit that it's positive looking forward. It is looking forward, and that's a really important point. And the role and position that BTCFC can have in our wider football family, the wider football network across the entire borough. A lot of work to do, but we're doing it. Like I said, these legacy issues are hard work. It isn't always in the glare of the public view. It does need to be done properly so that we can sustainably give BTCFC the future it deserves.
Thank you. My Deputy Mayor, Councillor Phillimore.
Yeah, I'd like to say a few things about this motion. I do support it wholeheartedly. But as a founding member of the Community Football Club, I was at the meetings that Councillor Minus-Bound attended when the Community Club was started. To answer Councillor Watts, I couldn't debate it because I had to declare an interest for 2 years as a treasurer and director of the football club when it started. I think I know a bit about local football. I've got a 50-year award, long service award from the Football Association. But there are a few people that we've missed when we've said who's to blame. Our previous local MP told us that Winklebury was adequate, told us that Winklebury was adequate as it was without anything else. I do commend the previous administration for not wanting to sell the 29% at a time to the previous owner. I wholeheartedly know why they didn't want to do that. But the facts of the matter are, the Camrose was obtained immorally, not illegally. But I do support this motion.
Thank you. Is there anybody else to speak? Yes, Councillor Murrow.
Just want to support this motion and thank Councillor Lee and Councillor West for the adding a little bit of, we're changing the word slightly, which allows our officers to make best use of the money. The fact is our officers are very good at taking a capital sum and levering money from other national government bodies, etc. And this leaves it open so that we can make the most of this money and make sure that investment is best used for all the footballers, all of people playing football in Basingstoke. And we will be talking with the club and making sure that it's spent in a good way. So thank you very much.
Councillor Patricia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree with this motion. Great start, but I don't see the ambition. What I would love to see at Basingstoke Community Football Club. There should be a 4-year plan where we should be in League 2, 8-year plan when we're in the Championship, 12-year plan we're in the Premier League, and a 14-year plan to be in the Europa Cup, and I have a dream to be in the Champions League. The size of our town should have that ambition. We can't do it as a council because we can't spend the billions that Sheikh, whoever owns Newcastle or Manchester City can, but we have some local business people who would be happy to get together as a group where we support them to get that dream come true. And that's what I want. In 16 years, I should be standing there in the stadium of 30 or 40,000 in the Champions League playing Real Madrid. Even if we get knocked out of this group stage, that's our ambition should be. Look at Southampton, look at Reading. I mean, okay, I know Southampton's a city, but there's other smaller towns that have got a much bigger club than us. So that's what we should be aiming for, not only the youth side of things. Thank you very much.
Councillor West.
I think the councillor who just spoke has proven my point before I'm able to get there, and Councillor James raised it, but has now left the room, so I've left here to make the point on my own. The Cameras Ground was home to local football for decades, and it hasn't been used for football for many years, and there is no going back, there is no way to get that back. So, yes, you can, and to my fellow councillor, I understand, especially as a councillor for Southam, see this as a sad day. But as Councillor James put it, I think this is also the day where we can turn the page, where we can see this as a really happy day. And personally, and I must declare an interest as the councillor for Basingstoke Town Community Football Club, this is a happy day, this is a great day. And also as a young person who wants housing and social housing and affordable housing in our town, it is a great day. This is a chance to finally stop this only being negative, this only being a bad story. And it's so great to actually be able to come together at hour 4, hour 3 of this budget meeting and agree on something as a chamber, which I think I might be wrong, please don't prove me wrong. I think there was agreement across this chamber about this, and that's a great sign for our football club, a great sign for football in our town going forward. Thank you to everyone for supporting this motion, please do.
Councillor Lee, would you sum up, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, we'll hope that everyone can support this motion. It's a very, very passionate place. Yeah. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Philimoy, I can see that there was nearly some tears breaking out there. I could holding it together, which is good. And Councillor Katecha, I think we all share that vision. We are, and Councillor Phillimore will probably correct me. I think we're the only town, the biggest town without a league football club in the country, which is shocking. And what does that lead to? It leads to our children supporting the likes of Reading, Chelsea, Tottenham, you know, all clubs that we should have the children supporting Basingstoke Town, because we're in, you know, league football, just as Yeovil, who's a smaller town than us, have been able to do. It'll certainly give maybe me some hope as a Norwich City supporter anyway. Yeah, thank you very much, and hopefully we can take a recorded vote and all agree on this. Thank you.
So you asked for recorded vote, so we're going for electronic voting. So great. So, motion carried. So, we come to Local government pay to council a fully funded proper pay rise for council and school workers. 5 minutes proposer, 5 minutes seconder, 20 minutes debate with 5 minutes for each speaker, 5 minutes to sum up. Councillor Lee, would you please propose your motion?
Thank you, Mr.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And hopefully those that aren't of the red persuasion might use this as a chance to vote against the Labour government. You know, yeah, I'm here for residents. I'm not. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, this is a separate one as well. I thought it came out on the last one. No? Okay, there is a minor tweak, again. A minor tweak to the wording. Sorry, Fiona. It's like one line. It has been agreed. I do apologise. But this motion goes to the heart, the very heart of our community and the people who sustain it, our local government workers. Over the past decade, local government has faced some of the harshest funding cuts in living memory. According to the LGA, between 2010 and 2020, councils lost 60 pence out of every pound they received from central government, an astonishing 50% reduction that has placed enormous strain on frontline services. We know that our council workers, including those in our schools, have gone above and beyond to support residents through difficult times. During COVID-19, they continued providing essential services, ensuring our children were educated, caring for our older and most vulnerable citizens, and protecting public health, often at great personal risk. They epitomise the dedication and professionalism we rely on to keep our towns and cities safe, clean and flourishing. Despite their vital work, these individuals have experienced years of pay restraint, with the majority of pay points losing at least 25% of their value since 2009-10. This is happening amidst the worst cost of living crisis in a generation. At the same time, Mr. Mayor, they face ever-increasing workloads and persistent job insecurity. According to the Office for National Statistics data, 900,000 local government jobs have been lost since 2010, one of the most severe reductions in the public sector. This burden has fallen disproportionately on women, who make up 3/4 of the local government workforce. It is abundantly clear we cannot expect people to shoulder these demands without adequate recognition or compensation. The financial resilience of our councils have been so severely eroded that the government's so-called levelling up pots did little to address the ongoing crisis. Now, research by Unison indicates that councils across England, Wales and Scotland collectively had a funding shortfall of, will have a collective funding shortfall of 8 billion by 25-26. Yet if the government were to fully fund the union's 2025 pay claim, union-sponsored economic impact analysis, such as those supported by the TUC and the New Economics Foundation, suggest that around half of that money would be recouped through increased tax revenue, reduced welfare costs and boosts to local economies. We must acknowledge that our staff are the lifeblood of our local services. Without them, the critical functions we take for granted, refuse collection, social care, child protection, public health and community safety, would simply grind to a halt. It is time for us to stand alongside them and demand that central government delivers a fair, fully funded pay increase. Members, this is about fairness, dignity and respect for our workforce. These dedicated individuals have done so much for us, often at considerable personal sacrifice. Even tonight, the co-leader has said we will have to work efficiency savings, meaning to work harder with less. We thank and praise them for the work they do regularly in this chamber, but words don't pay bills. They don't put food on the tables, and they certainly don't pay their mortgages. So now it's our turn, your turn, to do the right by them. Let's stand up and vote for this motion and send a clear message to central government that our local government workers deserve better, and we will not rest until they receive the support and reward they have so thoroughly earned. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor McCormick, do you wish to second this and speak now, or do you wish to reserve the right to speak to the motion at later stage?
I wish to second and reserve my right to speak later. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll now move to debate. Does anyone wish to speak? I got Councillor Munis-Bound.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start by acknowledging the vital work of local government employees. As has been said, their dedication keeps our communities running, supports our most vulnerable residents, and ensures vital public services continue despite ongoing financial pressures. Their concerns about fair pay should be, indeed, considered, thought through, and hopefully solved. And I fully appreciate why this motion has been brought forward. However, while I support the principle of fair pay, I believe this motion is misguided in its approach. The reality is that councils do not operate in financial isolation. Any meaningful pay increase must be fully funded, or we will risk further cuts to services that are already under immense strain. The biggest financial pressure the sector faces at the moment is rising demand, particularly in adult and children's social care, alongside increasing costs such as employers' national insurance and inflationary pressures across all council services. And I make that statement not to criticise national government per se, but to support local government across the board, across parties, across all different types of councils. Rather than the fragmented approach that we have in front of us, I believe the best way forward is to support the bipartisan lobbying efforts of the Local Government Association, and the LGA represents councils of all political backgrounds and takes a comprehensive view of local government finance, advocating not just for fair pay, but also for the funding required to sustain it, alongside other essential service delivery. This ensures that the case for local government funding is made in a way that reflects the full range of pressures on all council budgets. If we are serious about supporting our workforce and the workforce of other councils, we must focus on our efforts where they have the greatest impact. Through the collective and strategic advocacy of the LGA, working directly with government to secure the funding we need, and for that reason, although I support the spirit, I will not be voting for the motion.
Councillor Slimming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too agree with Councillor Munis-Bound that this is a motion that probably is misplaced in this chamber. Local government are not going to have a great deal of influence on what the government are going to be able to afford to pay, no matter how much we believe that people are worth more money than they get at the moment. I'm a governor of a school. I know how much our people at the schools actually do, and obviously we should all give them our thanks, as well as our own officers. However, I do believe that our local Labour colleagues would be better spent writing to their own MPs and making sure that their government actually agrees the pay policy that will be agreed by a joint committee and not by people like us. However, I would like to raise a point of order, Mr. Mayor. Local government pay scales, I believe that our allowance, our basic allowance, is attached to the pay rises that are given to us by the local government agreement. And therefore, perhaps we should all be declaring an interest and not being able to vote on this, because we could benefit from additional money that is agreed through that local government process. Sorry.
Can the monitoring officer respond, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as regarding that latter point by Councillor Simin, the decision of the motion decision isn't to award money to anybody. It's supporting a proposal. So I don't think there is an issue in terms of your interests at this meeting. So I do think you'll be able to take part and vote in that.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's an important qualification. We obviously do give dispensation in various debates, so I think it's important that we have that qualification before we vote on anything this evening. I think the intent of the motion is well meant. I can see that. It seeks to support our staff, and that is always good to see. We needed to be assured that this motion does not affect the collective bargaining process being undertaken by the trade unions representing local government workers. We shouldn't break away from that process of collective bargaining in any way. And I am now confident, having sought advice, that it does not break with that process. In supporting the motion, I have one major reservation. The government, were they to support the award, do not take from the pot of money given to us from services and residents in paying this award. As the motion says, this needs to be new money and not recycled monies. Regrettably, we have already seen some sleight of hand this evening, mentioned in speeches regarding the spending settlements of this year. We cannot have that on this decision, on this process of supporting what is in front of us, that they may well result in the pay claim being agreed by government, and where they may then say where the money comes from. So we cannot be placed in a position where we have to adjust our budgets providing services to meet this award. And we need to be aware of that when it gets that far. However, I respect that it's Labour councillors that have put this motion. So we will expect your government to step up when we will look for your support if they do not. And that's really important. I think here, to reiterate our commitment to staff, to their well-being, I will support the motion. But it has to come with these caveats, with these qualifications, in order that we do protect the financial integrity of the council.
Councillor Cubitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of a fact check, I'd just like to say that since 2010, according to artificial intelligence, research suggests that public sector salaries in the UK, including pension benefits, have been higher than private sector salaries since 2010. The difference in the total compensation has decreased over time, but it is still more than 6% than the private sector. Public sector workers benefit from more generous pension schemes with a higher share of remuneration deferred as pensions. Whilst the data indicates that the pay differential has gone down, it is still clear that the public sector benefit from a higher compensation during that period since 2010 than the private sector. Thank you.
Councillor McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I thank the contributions from across the floor tonight to this motion. I mean, it's a simple ask, really, supporting our unions in their bid to improve paying conditions of our workers. Wages have not kept pace with cost of living. Yes, it is incumbent on the government to find the money from somewhere to fund this. They may or may not do that. It's about an expression of intent on the members of this council to back our workers and the unions that represent them in this pay claim. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just, I guess, cover a couple of the points that were discussed. Councillor Minnis-Bound, it does say in the motion that this is for new money at both Section 3. It says, sorry, just let me bring the motion back up. It says that it must be section 3 of council believes and also section 4 of this council resolves to there's got to be new money. Sorry, section 3 of resolve 2, which is that work is to be funded with new money from central government. And it does mention it elsewhere that it is to be new money as opposed to just rehashed or recycled. Councillor Slimin, you discussed about this being misplaced in this chamber and that we effectively have no influence. This is a place for us as a council to lobby our national government. If we were to have used that same logic, and I'm trying, to look back in history, we shouldn't have passed the winter fuel allowance which was about lobbying government to do the right thing, because we don't have that influence, which is, it's, I guess, more frustrating to see that you're picking one side and not the other. Councillor Cubitt, I think you're using that as an excuse, your argument that council workers have historically got a different pay rise, than private workers, and you're kind of saying to them, it's your fault that you work here, that we shouldn't just give you a pay rise. I think everybody deserves a pay rise when it's needed. They have worked incredibly hard, certainly a lot harder than a lot of people in the private sector during the pandemic, who, by the way, didn't see a pay rise during the pandemic. I know because I worked during that pandemic as well, from home. But we need to support our workers who are doing more for a hell of a lot less because of the cuts that have taken place. We're removing certain departments. We are making our officers do more for across the board. So I think we should just be able to support them in lobbying government. We're not saying, here's a blank cheque, let's go and give it to them. We're just asking this council to lobby national government to support that rise and to provide the new money. That's what I have to say, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Can I take a recorded vote on it as well, please, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Now we will take a vote. Electronic vote, please. All right. Motion carried. Item 15, we have got no questions from councillors tonight. So we come to item 16, question to the chair of cabinet or a committee. 2 minutes for the answer, 2 minutes for the supplementary question and answer. So are there any questions to chair of cabinet or committees in respect of the minutes listed? Okay. we are there. So, nice meeting closed. Safe journey home.
Please get standing for the vote forward today.
Come on then, Sean.
Come on then.
Yeah.
You're right first.
He has to come with this. Sean.